provisions of the open meeting law relating to the 2020 coronavirus outbreak emergency. This meeting of the Milton Planning Board is being held remotely utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software. The login and call-in information is included on the agenda, which is on the screen. The meeting is being televised via live Milton Access Television. So if folks are watching, they can see the agenda on the screen and they can either log in to that address or call in. The login is very simple and you'd be able to join us live. So real-time public comment can be made via the audio feature of this platform. So whether joining by computer, by mobile device, or phone. So Town Planner Bill Clark, he mentioned he'll be controlling the mute feature until I ask for public comment. Comments can also be sent in written form through the chat function, and we will read the comments into the record at appropriate times. So the board is acting in accordance with the governor's guidance, which does not include ceasing public meetings or public hearings. I have received a number of emails regarding the public hearing for Little Sprouts at 919 Blue Hill Avenue with concerns about proceeding with our meeting and hearing. The town has worked with the guidance as noted, the governor's guidance, and with all of the boards and committees in town to successfully conduct the business of the town. The select board held a meeting last night using this same platform. I watched that meeting on Milton Access Television. There was a presentation utilizing, I think it was a PowerPoint presentation by the consultant Judy Barrett. And there was discussion about the 648 Canton Avenue 40B proposal. And members of the public were able to give live comment. The meeting, Milton Access Cable is also, in addition to broadcasting live, we'll have this available on their website and in their regular programming when the planning board meetings are usually found. We are confident that the board can conduct its business via this remote platform, and we will continue to accept comments, as we always do, via email, phone, and letter addressed to the planning department. At our last meeting on March 12th, we opened 2 public hearings and immediately continued them until tonight at specific times. Our posted agenda has different times than those, but we are bound by those times that we voted at our last meeting. Therefore, we're going to take the agenda items as follows. Administrative items. So that's quite simple at the moment. Our next meeting dates are April 9th and April 23rd. We anticipate that those are going to need to be remote meetings as well. Then we'll go to citizen speak, to old business, the 40B site plan eligibility applications, board feedback for the select board response letters. And then at 7:05, the site plan approval, Little Sprouts Preschool at 919 Blue Hill Ave. At 7:15, 227 Pleasant Street preliminary subdivision. And at 7:30, site plan approval at 25 Bryant Avenue. Now, relative to Little Sprouts, the 919 Blue Hill Avenue, I will open the hearing, make a brief statement, ask the applicant if they would like to make a brief statement, and then we will move to continue the hearing until April 9th. So with that, I will go to citizen speak. So Bill, if you could unmute everyone, and those who would like to speak during citizen speak, so something, given these time constraints, people can speak at citizen speak, but if you would like to be in the public record for the public hearings, you should wait until we open those public hearings. So Bill, if you would unmute and we can see who would like to speak to us during the citizen speak portion. And those now who are unmuted, if you'd like to speak to us, Please just give us your name at the moment.
Hi, Cheryl. It's Joe Sloan.
Hello, Joe. Sloan. Is there anyone
Hello.
else?
Hello, Planning Board. Greetings from Concord Avenue. We're not at the other end of the table, but when I saw that you still had citizens speak on tonight's agenda, I thought that what better time or what more important time to express support and gratitude for the work that you all do on an ongoing basis, including being here today. So I really just want to thank you for the continuous welcome that you showed to me and to everyone else who comes to your meetings and sits and listens and comes to the microphone. And we love that you make us feel welcome and you make us feel that our input is always really important. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone there, Cheryl, Denny, Rich, April, Kathleen, Bill, and Allison. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Joe.
Well said.
So is there anyone else who would like to address us at this citizen speak time? Okay. So we given that some may be watching and may decide they'd like to speak to us at some other point this evening, I'll make another call for that at some point down the road. But at this time, Bill, if you would mute everyone but the board members. Okay, so we talked briefly about two of the 40B applications at our, I guess our meeting a month ago, 4 weeks ago. And that was the 648 Canton Avenue and the 582 Blue Hill Avenue. And we said that we would talk about the East Milton 40B application as well. In the meantime, Kathleen O'Donnell has been working on drafting letters on our behalf, and I have been working on a graphics package that helps demonstrate the scale and context of these 40B applications. So I think maybe what I could do is start with the graphics. Or you want to go to Kathleen first? I see Kathleen's popped up on my screen. Bill, did you put her as a presenter?
I didn't. I actually removed the agenda so that you could take and put up
Okay.
your attachment, your share screen.
My share screen, okay. Share screen do I see here? Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Mike, can you change? Thank you. Try it again.
Okay, sorry about that. I have to get some things reduced down here. Well, this is my first time using this software, so let's, and I'm only seeing you, Bill, so let me see how that goes. Okay. Are you seeing my screen now?
I see you. Yep. You're the only thing on my screen, Cheryl.
All right. All right. I'm trying to get this. All right.
I see a door, a white door.
You see a door, and that's not my
Ned.
screen then. Do you see my screen?
No.
Supposed to be Ned Corcoran.
Then we don't have the right screen share, Bill.
Share screen. Share computer center. Screen. Mike, how come we can't get her screen?
She should be able to.
All right, now I'm getting it. Hold on.
Can you, this
Let me
is
see.
Ned. Can
Oh,
you
Oh,
there
yeah,
you go.
there you go.
Right
Oh,
there.
right. Sorry about that. I think that was on my end. Sorry about that. So
That's
what
gorgeous.
thank you, whoever said that.
I did.
Definitely.
What I did here was I wanted to put the multifamilies in context, because most of our multifamilies are in our business district at our boundary with Boston, and the scale and context of that area is a lot different than at least a couple of the 40B application. And with that, wanted to show that there's proximity to the things that are important in looking at the applications. So the proximity to amenities that within walking distance, also to public transit. And these multifamily sites are definitely, fit that bill. Then I wanted to compare the scale of these. I'm going to try and make you guys smaller here so I can, there we go. I can see my screen better. Compare them. So we look at 36 Central on the right to 3650 Elliott, which is Milton Hill House, to 131 Elliott, which is the Hendrys, then to 30 Curtis Road, which is Unquity House, 88 Wharf, and then the East Milton 40B, the 648 Canton Avenue 40B, the 582 Blue Hill Ave 40B, and then up above that is 600 Canton Ave, which is Winter Valley. This is a draft, so I don't have a graphic yet of Fuller Village or a chart to accompany this, which would have the square footage, the total units, parking, etc. Then in doing this, was taking a look at, let's compare maybe some things that might be similar in scale. So our 88 Wharf, which is probably one of our larger in terms of scale and number of units in the town, and compared that to 582 Blue Hill Avenue. So one of the interesting things is that the 88 Wharf has more square footage, a lot less units. It does have commercial space. It does have less parking given its location. But the 582 Blue Hill Ave at 150,000 square feet, 120 units, 5 stories plus retaining walls and 180 parking spaces is obviously far larger than anything around it, including Delphi Academy. And then looking at the 648 Canton Ave site and looking at Unquity House, Curtis Road, the sites are similar in size and the unit count is similar, but you can see the scales of the buildings are quite a bit different. And the one on 648 Canton Avenue being much larger and taking a much bigger footprint. And then taking a look at East Milton and comparing that to, in this case, the Milton Hill House. And Milton Hill House has 2 buildings, and they're about 4 stories high each, with a total of about 65, or a total of 65 total units, and 77,000 square feet, which is a little bit smaller in total, or is smaller in total than the East Milton proposal. And then comparing it here to 36 Central and 131 Elliott, and the again the 131 Elliott being just under an acre in size and 38 units and 4 to 5 stories, and 36 Central just under a half acre, 14 units and 4 stories. And then on the left, the East Milton proposal. So I think it's just helpful to understand the scale of the buildings relative to, that are being proposed relative to buildings that I think most of us are familiar with in town. And then looking at the sites themselves, this is 582 Blue Hill Avenue, the existing in the middle there. And then this is the proposed 40B.
Oh, man.
And the thing that's unclear in looking at 2-dimensional drawings is really this kind of scale. When I said retaining walls, they're actually proposing to fill in this whole area in here to build this fire lane around the building like this, and access to the parking garage, which is right here. And this in and of itself is about 12 feet. And then this is 44.5 feet here. And this is up to 20 feet here with these two retaining walls. So obviously, this is Delphi Academy, and then single family homes around it. You look at it from another angle. This is Blue Hill Avenue here and the entrance to the property here. And then again, superimpose the proposed 40B, and you can see the impact of these retaining walls along this side. This is the low point of the site. So the retaining walls are the highest here. But they're doing this in order to make this road around the building work. So when they say in their application that the building is 44.5 feet tall, it's really right here where where the topography is the highest and where the building and the parking is buried, but it's not that way down at this end. And somewhat eye level view juxtaposed here, the existing at the top and the proposed 40B at the bottom. And then again, sort of some of the dimensions that I just went over, but this building is 317 feet wide, 167 feet, well, you could say 317 feet long and 167 feet wide, 44.5 feet tall here, the 12.5 for the parking, and then the 21 feet here with retaining walls. So when we put these to the words that I think Kathleen probably has crafted well, it gives a visual to how these are out of scale and out of context with their surroundings, grossly so. And if I did a similar analysis at 648 Canton Avenue, so the green line is the existing with the house in the middle here. This is Winter Valley, and over here is Milton Hospital. That's the 40B proposal. A parking lot close to the street and close to this neighboring property. Again, the sort of ring road of fire lane. This doesn't have this topography is a little less drastic, but it is lower here and rising up here. So the apparent height, as people have said in their testimony to the select board, the apparent height from the sidewalk is actually even greater than what it is at the grades around the building. Again, this different angle. And though they've talked about the building being set back from the homes on Holmes Lane, there is a parking deck here. And if this is a landscape deck, it is the roof of a parking garage. Whereas this parking lot and this parking lot and then a split roadway in. Again, looking at it from approximately from Canton Avenue. And then here, this shows the darker blue is the creek. And these are the setback boundaries for the wetlands from the creek. And this line here goes into and under the proposed building there. This building is 350 feet long by 142 feet wide. And again, the 44 feet 6 height that is in the application actually starts at the roof of the parking level. So at this corner, it's approximately 60, 61 feet out of the ground and 53 approximately at this end of the site. And that's just a close-up view of the same. And then East Milton, the site is in the green boundary again. So the existing building here is on the property as well as these three residential buildings. So this existing commercial. Fruit Center here. So this is Bassett Street and Franklin Street. That's the proposed building. 4 stories here, 5 stories here, entrance at the corner. Parking in the middle of that L shape. from a different angle. So this is Bassett Street here. The proposed. Again, another angle. So this is Franklin Street here. The proposed building. This is the entrance to the parking, goes through an opening in the building to this parking here. There's actually, I want to go back. I don't have on here, there's an entrance to the parking right here, to the garage parking right here. This is kind of eye level of Bassett Street. So the gas station here, fruit center right here, the property here with the proposed 40B building here. This is Franklin. So Bassett Street coming through here and Franklin here, the existing commercial right there and existing house here. That's the proposed. This is the dimensions for this are from here 163 by 173, 64 and a half feet tall right here. That's, anybody want me to go back to any of those images? That's the graphics package so far.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah, that really shows what we're dealing with.
I sent you, and I sent the entire board a new package that was delivered at 4:41 this afternoon, a redesign for 582. That's taking it from 120 units down to 88 units.
Oh,
It is lowering that height a little bit. After discussions with Mass Housing, the applicant has decided to redesign his building, make it a little bit smaller. I sent you the packet, and I haven't taken, it just came in at 20 minutes of 5, so.
yeah.
When you
Okay.
say you sent it to us on email, is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
19 megabytes, so it took a little while to go.
So if there are no further, there's no further need for the graphics, we can, or discussion on the graphics, we could go, Kathleen, to the comments.
Sure. I mean, I think the graphics, my thought on this is that last time we sent a letter to the select board and then hoped that they would incorporate our comments into their letter. I've been helping another group of people in another town, and I think that we would want to ask to have our letter just be submitted directly as an attachment to the select board's letter. It seems to me that from a strategic point that it makes more sense to have Mass Housing receive a bunch of letters rather than just the select board. So I sort of drafted it in a way that the select board could just attach it, and they should send their letter together with the letters from the DPW and from the town engineer. I think you could mention them the select board could mention them in their letter, which I think Judy's going to draft for them. But I think it's best to have all these attachments, and I definitely want our graphics to go. And so I don't want to be in a situation where the select board says, oh, we just summarized your stuff and just sent 3 pages. I think we should be sending in all of our stuff. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
April or Rich, do you have any comment about that?
No, not at all. I mean, that's
Sense to me.
a good plan to me. I mean, I trust. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, I don't think. Have you guys sent it, or are we just looking at it now?
I just sent it, I got jammed up with a bunch of closings and some other
Oh, yeah.
conference calls and stuff.
Don't
So-
worry, that wasn't a directive. That wasn't like a, hey, where is it?
No. I meant to get it done, but it just, I don't know. All of a sudden, everybody decided to go to work. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we go through some of the things that we think that the letter should touch on, since we have time before our 7:05, and then we'll see if there's actually, why don't we take any public comment first, and then we'll come back and talk about the topics that we think it should touch on. Because I know, Kathleen, you said that you'd been looking at the design guidelines and thought that we should have our comment letter pretty directly go back to the design guidelines. Were you raising a hand, Denny?
Yeah, I did have a question.
Mhm.
My agenda says 6:05, not 7.
Yeah, well, I read that at the beginning that we were going to have to change it after talking with town council, because we, at our last meeting, we continued to a date and time certain.
Oh,
When
I'm
when the agenda was prepared, there was an understanding that there was some accommodation for that with some of the governor's orders, but town council advised against that today.
Okay.
And so,
It hasn't been voted yet by the powers to be. It's still in third reading.
Oh, no, it's just the situation where we have an agenda, we had a meeting and we announced a time.
Correct.
You can't just change it.
I can take and move things
Yeah.
I get it. No,
forward. I cannot move them backwards. I could have made it 7:30 instead of 7:05. I could have made it 7:30, but I couldn't make it
Do it
7:05
earlier.
and make it 6:05. And I thought that with the new legislation, we could because of the extenuating circumstances. It's not like that. Hasn't been voted through yet.
okay.
So we apologize for that and having this time in between, but I did make the announcement in case people wanted to drop off and come back if they were interested only in one topic on the agenda. So before we go to the board comments about the letter, is there, Bill, I'm going to ask you to unmute everyone who's on remotely and ask if there's anyone who would like to provide us comments. First, I will do the East Milton 40B proposal.
I think Mike is going to do that for me. Yes, Mike?
Okay.
Maybe not. So I'll do
All
it
right.
myself.
Thank you.
Everybody's unmuted that would be speaking.
I see some that still show mute on my screen.
Try this a different way.
You have to click on everyone separately, or can you
You need
unmute?
me?
I tried that.
What do you need?
Can you unmute everybody for a minute?
I'll sit.
Everybody, anybody have comments?
Or East Milton 40B application? Okay, does anybody have comments for the 648 Canton Avenue 40B application? All right, does anybody have comments for the 582 Blue Hill Avenue 40B application? Okay, seeing none, we're back to the board.
Okay, I'll mute everybody and come back and unmute the board. Okay, have everybody,
Rich, there you go. Kathleen?
oh, I gotta get Kathleen. She's moving around.
Here I am.
Okay, so Kathleen, do you have a structure? Like, how do you think you want the letter to be structured?
Yeah,
in
let
terms of
me
topic?
just sort of go over the outline because it's sort of, they're gonna be the same kind of letter
Okay.
for all of them. So the first page is just sort of, we submit this letter to be incorporated into the town's response, as an attachment. And we would start off by saying, first of all, that we would be voting either unanimously or whatever, opposed, in favor, whatever of the application submitted, for the reasons below. And so what I started off is to explain what efforts the town has undertaken already to address affordable housing. Number one, the housing production plan has been approved by DHCD as of, I think, was March 6th. We have an affordable housing trust. We have a master plan. We've hired a consultant to look at doing 40R for East Milton. We have an article proposed for whenever we hold a town meeting on the Milton Village overlay, which provides incentives for affordable housing. And that we have been working with DHCD to modify our inclusionary zoning to provide more flexibility in housing types. And that we've been working with the developer on Blue Hill Avenue, referencing the mass housing number, to bring a much needed mixed use opportunity to that section of town. So I thought it was important to say,
I'm sorry, Kathleen, the Parkway, right? Not the avenue?
Parkway, right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I thought it was important to say, what to mass housing, what we have been doing, that we haven't just been sitting around, and we've actually tried to do stuff. And I think the village overlay district for, that we've been working on with those incentives is another, example of what, and that we are working on the 40R potentially for East Milton. So it showed that we were trying to take some steps, and I think that's important. And then I went into the concerns and basically, looking at mass housing, you're supposed to be showing that the project is generally appropriate on the site and that the site's generally appropriate. And I think it's pretty clear that, at least for Canton and Blue Hill, both of them are completely inappropriate for the sites. Both of them are small, relatively small properties with a single family home in a single family district. They're supposed to be, according to mass housing's design criteria, you're supposed to have a project that is generally appropriate for the site, taking into consideration integration into existing development patterns. I think with Cheryl's hard work on those graphics, it's pretty clear that these two projects don't even come close to integrating into the surrounding development patterns. And I think it's really important to just keep beating on the fact that the height, the size, the footprint, are just completely inappropriate for the project, for the sites that they've chosen. One of the things that many of the comments, I watched the select board last night and the comments that people were making, and many people pointed out that this application kind of lies I hate to use that word, but they kind of do, about the height. They just keep saying it's 4 stories. But they don't mention that the 4 stories are sitting on top of a garage. And also that, for both of them, that they're going to be having these huge retaining walls and the height above it. And so in some cases, it's going to be like 60 feet high in a single family neighborhood, where the other thing they sort of talk about, which I mentioned in my letter, is that they keep saying, oh, well, it's comparable to other sites in town. And so I looked up Winter Valley, and that's 160 units in low-rise buildings on 12 acres.
24.
Well, 24, okay. Well, I looked on their website. So yeah, it's not even close to the same kind of density as these folks are looking at. Fuller Village is another one they mentioned, but that one, has a bunch of different housing types. And I think, isn't that 36 acres?
60.
60. I remember when we did that 1.5% thing. Yeah. So, this is not even close. And so the idea that they keep saying in many places that, oh, well, there's comparables all over the place is just insane. So I think we need to focus on that. So that's sort of the first thing, is that it doesn't meet mass housing's requirements, that it's generally appropriate. And secondly, there's the sustainable development principles that project's supposed to be following, and they check off a bunch of different boxes to say, oh yeah, we're totally doing that. But in that situation, so I went through to say it doesn't have mixed use. It's not located, they say it's located near a village center. Well, I thought it was important to remind Mass Housing, they've been here a number of times now, that, you know, where the library and the police station and the fire station and town hall, yeah, that's a village center, but you can't buy a quart of milk anywhere in that area. You can't shop. You don't have any services unless you want to go to the library and go to the, you know, the coffee machine. So the idea that this is such a great location because it's near a village center, that's not what that was designed to be doing. And I worked on the regulations and the legislation for 40R, and I can tell you that this is not what we had in mind when we talked about village centers. So I think, so we wanted to mention the fact that anybody living in this project is going to have to drive to get groceries anywhere. I mean, you're not going to be able to walk to get anything.
Kathleen, to that point, can I point out to you that I looked at, you know, the Walk Score website where you look at transit, walkability, access to transit, access to bike. And I looked at, and that was going to be in this page on the bottom where they said there's a chart to be inserted.
Yeah.
But the, you know, Canton Avenue has a transit score of 33 as compared to 88 Wharf of 63. Canton Avenue has a walk score of 21 as compared to 88 Wharf of 68.
Yeah.
And it has a bike score of 39 as compared to 88 Wharf of 61. So when we talk about, you know, the walkability, even, and all of those things, but it's even worse for Blue Hill Avenue. Transit is 25, walk score is 11, and the bike score is 27. So if you, Denny, yes?
I was wondering where we could find those scores for East Milton.
I have it for East Milton too.
Okay, great.
They don't have the bike score for some reason, but the walk score is 64 and the transit score is 32.
Thank you.
So when, so like a walk, I don't have that website up right now, but a walk score of 21 and 11 or would mean that you need a car for most all errands. Okay? So the higher the number, the less dependent you are on a car to run errands.
I'll look that up because I think, I mean, and the other thing is they asked for a waiver. They want a waiver for the sidewalk into the project because of the narrowness of the entrance, and they need to have 2 lanes. They're going to ask the zoning board to waive the requirement for a sidewalk on that driveway. So you're not even encouraging walking anyway because you're not even putting in a sidewalk on the site, which is kind of nutty. And then you've mentioned before about the wetlands. I mean, a good chunk of that building sits within the 100-foot buffer line.
I'll go back to the blue that you can see.
On that stream. And then yesterday at the select board meeting, a number of residents pointed out the fact that there's a real stormwater issue there that goes all the way down to Wendell Park and to the police station. So I know that the developer's engineer, as we know, Bill and I from the Randolph Avenue project, loves putting stormwater under buildings. You know, it was a dumb idea there. It's a dumb idea here. So.
Yeah, I mean, this blue obviously doesn't start here and end here. It continues through here and then it continues and ends up down this way. Here's the police station and the intersection. And Wendell Park is off of this view, but yeah, so that line, as you can see, you know, definitely goes.
Yeah, I mean, so So it's not protecting natural resources. It's not using, ecosystems, it's not doing, so on the sustainability scorecard, it's, not doing very well there at all. So I went through all of that. And then my other issue about this is that and I shared, I think with Cheryl yesterday, is that I am working with an entity on the North Shore where we own a piece of land. We got it from the town and we're selling it to a developer, and we put out an RFP. We got an amazing response from a team that is unbelievably experienced. They sent along the pictures of the projects. They did the Fairmount Station project in Hyde Park. They've done stuff in Chelsea, Haverhill, all over the place, reusing buildings, building mixed use, all this kind of stuff, and have a long scorecard about what they have done. These folks, on their own admission, have only done single family houses. The only rental projects that they ever have owned, they purchased in Florida. They were already in existence. And they own one in Nashua. I'm not sure they built that. They may have bought that from somebody else as well. So we don't have a team that has demonstrated the ability to construct, manage, operate a rental project.
You're talking about the Tempo did the applicant for Blue Hill Avenue and for Canton Avenue.
You can't say that about the one on East Milton, because those Corcoran's done a bazillion 40Bs all over the place. So we don't have that same concern with the East Milton one. I think in the East Milton one, we still have a concern about the scale. I, to a certain extent, don't understand why they haven't put the massing in the center of the site instead of on the edges. But I'm not an architect. Maybe there's a reason for that. But, you could sort of see a way to kind of reconfigure that project in a way that it steps back instead of being like a fortress on Bassett and Franklin.
So if we can, I think that when I looked at that too, and when I looked at that prior proposals that the Falcone companies had put forth, I really think that there's a lot of different massing options that they have that could change the scale and the impact on the street quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's just on, overall scale.
Yeah.
I think they have some issues too with where they're showing the parking entrance on Bassett Street, that garage entrance, if you want to make Adams Court pedestrian friendly. And for that matter, pedestrian friendly on all the streets. You don't put the bulk of the building right on as close to the property line as possible.
Right.
I think just the position of the building there, the bulk of the massing, that seems to me they have more options.
Yeah,
that can make
I think so too. I think so too.
Less impacts. So before we maybe go into some of the merits of each one, so the way I took some notes here, Kathleen, in terms of the structure of the letters would be describing what vote that the board would take, and then describing the efforts the town has been undertaking, and then start addressing the appropriateness for the sites, the integration into the existing development patterns, which has to do with the scale. As you said, height, size, footprint, etc. The comparability to other sites in town. And then the sustainability scorecard and protection of natural resources. And then the qualifications of the applicant. Are there other things in terms of topics that anyone else thinks that should be included in the letter, board members? Denny?
Yeah, I'm not sure where you would put like the water table issues, but it seems like I've heard there's some issues with water in East Milton.
I did put that into the sustainability scorecard because you're not, and I mentioned it on page 2, is that, it's on the wetlands. We all understand that lots of these abutting properties run sump pumps all year round. There's all sorts of issues about drainage into Canton Ave. And they haven't demonstrated any ability to address those issues. But I'll flesh that out, Denny.
No, that's great. I'm glad it's somewhere. So we'll try to be consistent with the East Milton letter. We'll put it under sustainability.
Well, yeah, I mean, but sustainability issues in East Milton are significantly different than the ones in Canton Ave and Blue Hill Ave.
I do understand that they do have some water issues though. According
I
to
mean,
people who live there, that's what I've been hearing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. We don't have storm drains in the streets around here. I don't have a storm drain in Belcher Circle. So I don't know. There may not be storm drains.
Okay.
But I'll look.
So East Milton, it seems to me, has the, a little different in this sort of the opportunity for integrating some commercial as a discussion point, because it is in the business district for part of it, that site.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we have limited business district area. Mixed use is something we're looking at for East Milton. So I think we should talk about that aspect of the program that I think is missing.
Okay.
Anybody agree with that? Everybody else a comment on that?
I don't think it's as strong an argument, but
So
I don't know.
it's not in there for plan though, so what do you?
Well, it's the same thing that
Replace
we did with the Blue Hill Parkway, where we said that there was an interest in having mixed use on that site rather than just 100% housing. And we
yeah,
asked
but
if
Cheryl,
could
if you
see the
look
plan.
around downtown, I mean, East Milton, absolutely every single office building has got a sign saying for rent.
Yeah, because it's
So-
all substandard space, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't know that there's, I don't know what kind of demand, especially, after this situation that we're going through now. I mean, it's different. The Ice House was the Parkway. There's no mixed use. There's no place to buy a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, or a quart of milk. Here, they're right next to the fruit center and Starbucks. So you don't have that same, I think, argument about the need for mixed use at that particular site that you do. Well, we did it for the Parkway.
And we
I
passed
think Adam's
zoning for mixed use at the Parkway.
April.
I was just gonna make the point, we also have recently just passed mixed use zoning in the Parkway, which we haven't done in East Milton. So I think this is really the crux of the argument for the Parkway. In my
Yeah.
One of the things that's in the application for East Milton is activating the streetscape and activating Adams Court. I don't think that putting your parking along Adams Court, and frankly, the garage goes underneath what looks like grade level parking. So there is a garage wall that's coming up out of the ground next to Adams Court. And Adams Court, the properties next to that could get redeveloped at some point in time and no longer be a back door. It could be a really nice pedestrian connection over to the Milton Marketplace. So between connecting Adams Street and the Marketplace. I think it is something that may come up when we're looking at the mixed use overlay. So I at least would like some consideration that we're talking about a mixed use overlay in that district, and this would be a part of that district.
Okay. Okay.
I would be interested to hear from the public on that, where, when the public joins the public hearings, their thoughts on if they want us to push for mixed use in this letter.
We're not having a public hearing on this.
On the 40B letter?
No, we're in the planning board drafting a letter, but there's no public hearing for it. We don't have, I mean, there's not an application. We're having a public meeting of the planning board talking about the letters, but there's no further process here.
So I want to come back to the mixed use for 1 minute, but I want to make a comment about the 40B status. The select board have asked Mass Housing for an extension for the submission of the comment letters, but they have not been granted those extensions. So it is Bill April 16th,
15.
15th. And I know April 15th for Canton Avenue and Blue Hill Avenue that the select board must submit their letters by. And they have
22nd for East Milton.
22nd for East Milton. And so we actually need to get our comment letters to the select board so our comments can be considered in their letter that they submit by the 15th. And I know that they have their consultant, Judy Barrett, already working and thinking about the letters. And so our hope is that this graphics package could help her and them, as well as the comments that Kathleen's putting in the draft. So if we, I think if we could have some consensus about certain aspects of our comments, maybe not the final language, that we could authorize Kathleen to continue to work on the letters, so that I'm concerned that if we don't get them to the select board until after our next meeting, that they won't have adequate time to consider our comments for inclusion.
That's right, because they said last night, Mike Zulus said that there was a deadline of March 16th for comments from boards and commissions of the town. And we're already past that.
It originally was March 19th that they were due.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent them all to that was so that I could send it to the the select board and to Judy Barrett.
Yeah, right.
All of those have gone except for the fire department. I got the fire departments this afternoon.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I do know that I gave I sent the engineering letters for these projects to the planning board earlier today because I got them
right
today.
So I apologize for being late on this, but as I said, all of a sudden everything got jammed up. But my thought on it is that, Denny, we don't have time for this, so.
Well,
This just came in today.
Kathleen, please don't apologize. I mean, we've had a state of emergency. I really did not expect you to have a letter tonight. I'm impressed you got us anything, so.
Rich, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I just don't want to jump over everybody. I know you guys are going back and forth a lot. So should I raise my hand or?
Yeah, if I see your hand.
Okay, good. I just didn't know if you could see us all at once.
I can, although April I don't see right now, but.
Yeah, because I only, there it
Yeah,
is.
just, there she is. Just pipe in if you also, I'll try to do it that way.
Okay, no, I appreciate it.
The only ones who we can hear are each other right now, so.
Sure.
But go
Yeah,
ahead.
I know. I'm always cognizant. I don't want to cut somebody off. So I just a question about process. So knowing that we have limited time. So Kathleen, are you drafting all 3 letters?
Well, I knew I was doing 2. I can do East Milton as well. I thought maybe Denny was doing it, but maybe I was wrong about that.
So we had never discussed it, but I mean, if anybody wants me to, I was thinking Rich. I don't know how Rich feels about that.
That's fine. That's why I'm asking now, because we got to figure it out soon if it's by the 15th.
If I've already done 2 and we got the layout, I'll just do the 3rd.
That's fine. And then that might speed things along so that we can have a little bit of a discussion about them.
Yeah.
The other process question I would have is at the beginning of your statements, you had mentioned voting on them. Is that something?
I'm thinking maybe we don't need to.
Okay.
Maybe we just say that, because that'll be just too hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, normally not normally, I've only been a part of a couple of these, but I've seen us vote. Are we all in agreement about sending what we've come up with over? And I think that's appropriate. I just don't want to have an up or down vote if we like the idea of the plan right now, because they're so preliminary, and quite honestly, I like none of them the way they're written. But any one of the 3, if they were drastically changed, sure, they could have life to it. But so I just don't see the point in giving somebody the opinion that, hey, I am good with all or I am not good with all when we're so at the beginning and they don't look right.
So I'll just say that we have serious objections to the applications as filed.
There you go. I like that.
So Kathleen, just a question process-wise also, or Bill, because this new drawings or new revisions to the 582 Blue Hill Avenue, are we not to consider those relative to our comment letter right now? I haven't looked at that. It just came in before the
The
meeting.
date of them says 3/26.
So we
let us
can't do
do
that by
in-
the 15th.
Yep. So, and I know that we asked for more time due to the extenuating circumstances of today, and we were denied. So will that continue? I don't know.
So we have a few more minutes before 7:05.
No, can you unmute April?
She can unmute herself, I think, but yes. No, you can't? All
Hold
right,
on.
sorry. I don't know why you're muted. Bill, can you do it?
Got it.
Got it? Okay.
Well,
Hello?
There you are.
Okay, thank you. It was saying muted by host for some reason. I don't know what.
Okay.
Cheryl, I did briefly get the opportunity to look a little bit at the revision that Kim Posey gave today. I don't think any of the feedback that you guys would include in your comment letter is likely to change based on the revisions that they provided.
Okay. So I think if I could just summarize a couple of things, and we can come back, I think, particularly for East Milton. I'd say that 582 Blue Hill Ave and 648 Canton Ave are similar in terms of very many of the comments. What I would say is that some differences, Blue Hill Avenue, the retaining walls and the additional height that imposes because of the topography on the
Yeah, well, the
property.
new plan has that differently now, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it steps back from Meeting House Lane. It takes out that sort of a middle court. There was a middle, it was sort of E-shaped and now it's sort of C-shaped. And it's stepped back more. So it changes that. So I think that would reduce some of the impact of it. I mean, it'll still have, and it's still too big, but
Right.
it does
Yeah,
have a
so-
bit different.
Well, I guess at some point I get to model another scheme here, but
Cheryl,
yeah.
I'm not insinuating this is what we're doing, but I'm not sure, like, I like what you've done comparing the properties, but I don't know that in our language we should compare the properties because there are three unique properties and they're three very different things. And I don't want to get into well, this one is a little better than this one or this one, you know what I mean? Like they're just three completely different projects.
Yeah, I think it's not really so much whether one's better or something. It's just that I think we can't write as if they're all the same. We have
No,
to.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. That's why I don't know if there's three letters or I would imagine.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
three
no,
letters.
there are
There's
three
three
letters.
separate
Yeah,
letters.
so they're three separate letters. So yeah.
I'm just trying to point out the things that I think we want to identify in the letter that's different from one site to the other for these two because they have a lot of similarities. But obviously the difference in Blue Hill Avenue in terms of the topographic change and the retaining walls that are required are not the same kind of issues that you find in the other two. And then on Canton Avenue, you have wetlands that you don't have in the other two. And you have Canton Avenue, is in terms of the 2-lane road coming out onto a 30-foot wide Canton Avenue scenic road. So there are some, that's different than the scale of Blue Hill Avenue, for example. So I just, otherwise, I think there's a lot of similarities in the comments that we would make on both of those.
Mm-hmm.
I
I get where you're going.
Yeah, in East Milton, I think we should come back and talk about that further because there are more differences in East Milton than there are between the other two, right? Just the sites are so much different.
Yeah.
I agree totally. I think my comment more than is for if anybody's listening, thinking like I just don't want anybody to feel like we're putting these three things up and just talking about comparing them because that's not what you're doing, and I know that you're not doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to look at these each site, but comparing them to other buildings in town, I did do because
Sure.
that's part of
Absolutely.
what their applications do. And I wanted to help us and help Mass Housing understand how much bigger these are than anything else in town. And yet we're also putting these in locations that are really challenging to put a building this size in, which is what a lot of the select board comments from residents have been. I'd like us to come back though, if we can, because it's 7:05 and I would like to go to the public hearings, okay? So
Yep.
it's site plan approval for Little Sprouts Preschool, 919 Blue Hill Ave. As I said earlier, I'm going to make a brief statement and then I'll ask the applicant if they want to make a brief statement, and then I'll ask for a motion to continue the hearing until our meeting on April 9th. So the brief statement that I want to make, I think, is just to help the public understand this use, which is a child care center with a preschool, so educational. That use falls under state law regarding what's allowed use, rather than most of our uses, which fall under our local zoning bylaws. So it falls under Section 3 of the Zoning Act, it's so-called the Dover Amendment. And a quote that Kathleen has kindly provided for me is that no ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit, regulate, or restrict the use of land or structures for religious purposes or for educational purposes, provided, however, that such land or structures may be subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of structures and determining yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements, end quote. As a general rule, we can only apply those bylaws, so our zoning bylaws, which do not substantially diminish or subtract from the usefulness of the building for educational purposes. So we don't have some of the purview or tools that we might have on other types of site plan applications. And I just want the public to understand that. So Kathleen, I don't know if there's anything you would like to add to that.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, you have to remember, you can sort of take a look at, you know, the setbacks and, you know, parking and all that sort of thing. But the conditions that you might want to impose, you know, you can't sort of put in all these conditions that make it impossible to use the building for the purpose that is at the educational purpose. And the one unfortunate thing about it is that, you know, the traffic isn't one of the considerations. It's just really, it's the structure and the use and the operations on the site. So we don't have the same ability to sort of hire a traffic consultant and, you know, do all that sort of look that you normally would be doing.
Can I ask a question on this? Either anybody can answer it. I'm just curious. So my understanding at looking at the different options, I mean, obviously the developer can go forward, I think with their, is it option A, and kind of move on, and they've got some other opportunity that they're looking at with some variances. Now, the fact that we've got variances that, you know, that need to be voted on and approved, I'd imagine that does open it up for us to look at, you know, some of those things that not all of those things that you're mentioning, but like, you know, maybe not so much traffic, but we should be considering safety, things like that. And again, I'm not saying that one option is better than the other. I'm trying to understand a little bit better, because, you know, if we had nothing to do here, the project would go on without us, and it would be like, you know, I don't know, like an A&R or something, but it's not. They're looking for variances.
Well, they're not looking for variances from us. They're looking for variances from the ZBA.
They're looking for site approval from us.
Yeah,
Right.
to get the variance. Yes.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, so variances aren't being issued by
No,
us.
I'm sorry, that's not what I meant, but they've got to.
Yeah, Rich, just to be clear, site plan approval is required because of the use of the building. So we have a requirement in our local zoning bylaws, and it's required for a commercial building. Was it, Bill, 600 square feet or 800 square feet?
800
No,
square
I
feet.
get it.
Yeah.
but you're then, so, all right, then what are we looking at?
So I did ask town council to provide some guidance. I got a letter from him at 5:30, so I haven't yet had a chance to read it. I'm looking at it right now, and I will forward it to members. Our zoning bylaws address site plan approval in section 8D. So if folks want to look that up on our zoning bylaws. And under subsection 3, the bylaw sets forth general conditions for approval of a site plan. And the bylaw states that in considering a site plan under this section, the planning board shall assure to a degree consistent with the reasonable use of the site plan for the purposes permitted or permissible by the regulations of the district in which it's located. So we already talked about use not falling, being superseded by state law there. But it does say A, protection of adjoining premises against detrimental or offensive uses on the site. B, convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent streets, property, or improvements. C, adequacy of the methods of disposal for sewage, refuse, and other waste resulting from the uses permitted or permissible on the site, and the methods of drainage for surface water. D, adequacy of space for the off-street loading and unloading of vehicles, goods, products, materials, and equipment incidental to the normal operation of the establishment. E, proper use of the site with respect to unit density and proximity of adjacent buildings to each other. And F, the adequacy of lighting to maintain a safe level of illumination on the site and whether lighting is properly shielded to protect adjacent properties. So Kevin's letter says, as with any other request for site plan approval, the planning board shall consider each of these criteria. The criteria require the planning board to consider, among other things, the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent streets, property, or improvements. It is therefore reasonable for the planning board to consider the number of vehicles that may be at the site at any one time, as that number will undoubtedly affect the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site, as well as adjacent streets and properties. These considerations also serve the broader municipal interests of vehicle and pedestrian safety. Then he goes on under subsection 4 of section 8D of the zoning bylaw, the authority of the board is described in detail. Specifically, the bylaw states that the planning board may reject any plan which fails to meet standards for health, safety, welfare, and amenities appropriate to the special needs of the persons by whom such buildings are intended to be occupied and appropriate to the maintenance and preservation of health, safety, welfare, and amenities in relation to adjacent and other properties in the neighborhood. That was the quote. He goes on, as with the criteria set forth above in section 3, the planning board should act in accordance with the specific authority as provided with in section 4. In doing so, the planning board is justified in considering the safety of the site and how, for example, that safety may be affected by the site's layout or its use by vehicles and pedestrians. He goes on to describe the Dover Amendment, stating in pertinent part, in quote, no zoning ordinance or bylaw in any city or town shall prohibit or require a special permit for the use of land or structures or the expansion of existing structures for the primary, accessory, or incidental purpose of operating a child care facility, provided, however, that such land or structures may be subject to reasonable regulations concerning the bulk and height of structures and determining yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. As used in this paragraph, the term child care facility shall mean a child care center or school-age child care program as defined in section 1A of chapter 15D. Then Kevin's last paragraph states, the Dover Amendment does not limit the scope of the planning board site plan review based on the criteria and authority set forth above. The planning board should focus on that criteria and authority and avoid any consideration of the nature of the applicant's use of the site. I'll forward this letter to all of you.
Thank you. And I must not have been speaking it, saying, I guess, what was in my head, because it sounds to me like what I was getting at, Kevin is on the same page. I'm on the same page. I get that. So I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Cheryl,
Yes.
can you acknowledge Ned, because he's going to allow a continuance?
Okay, so I just wanted to see if any other members have any comments or questions before I do that.
Carol, is there a time frame on when we have to act on this?
If we have the consent of the applicant, we can continue it.
And if we don't, then what? We have to decide tonight?
I don't know, remember what the, when the application came in, but we're running up close to a deadline, I'm sure. Because that's the issue, we have until the legislation passes, which hopefully will, that extends the time periods. That's why we're having to have these meetings this way, because people have been saying, well, wait a minute, you shouldn't be doing this. But unfortunately, we don't have this until we get the statutory relief that, that bill that you sent around April, and thanks very much. We have to act with the deadlines that we've got.
So can Bill or Allison or somebody just review for us what the deadlines are and when this was submitted so people understand that pressure?
This was submitted in February, but the applicant has allowed 2 continuances of the project. So I believe if we go to Ned, he can make further explanation to that.
I do have a question too before we go to Ned.
Okay, Rich.
Being that we're going to have some time here, it sounds like, if Ned is going to continue it, if we're looking at, if we're going to at some point start talking about safety possibly. I have some questions, especially with the other, with like maybe option B or C, or how many options there are. What I'd like to hear at some point is, and I know we've talked about them, but maybe we can have them either come in or send some letters in, but like our traffic committee or our town engineer or the fire department or the police, like any of those that would like to weigh in and talk about what their thoughts are too. I'm not an expert in traffic, and so it would be helpful if that's one of the things we're looking at, to get some feedback from them.
Bill?
I don't have anything. I suggest that we go to Ned for his input.
I think at a prior meeting, somebody weighed in and said that all of those folks, Rich, that you just talked about have weighed in, and we asked for that in writing in a letter. And I
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
yeah. So
Like
I mean,
from,
unless Bill Ned's taking the project away, and he's just continuing, I would like to get that stuff from those folks at some point. So, but yeah, I'm done.
Can you say that again, April? Because I didn't quite get it.
So we talked about this at another meeting, I think, about the town engineer weighing in and saying he didn't have, and the traffic committee saying they didn't have concerns about the placement of the driveway, as suggested, that the fire chief had feedback on the location of the entrance and exit as relates to the location with Atherton, and perhaps there being an interruption in his level of service. Is located on Atherton, and I think I asked if we could get those comments in writing as part of our record.
Thank you. Yeah, you remembered it so much better than I did.
I also asked to get the letter from the fire chief about Atherton. So it's come up a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, then at Bill's suggestion, is everyone okay moving to Ned?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So Ned, please.
Good
Go
evening.
forward.
I'm going to, so a couple of things. One, for the time being, we understand that they were under time limits to get through this hearing, but we are interested in working as best we can with representatives of the neighbor groups and the board to arrive at the best outcome possible. So we're not pushing the buttons on on the timing at this point. Interestingly, and I think from a helpful perspective, a number of the neighbors are now represented by council. Yeah, I had a long conversation with him this afternoon about the sort of the process of modifying the proposal and where we're trying to net out if we can. We agreed that it was appropriate to continue the hearing tonight and continue it until April 9. I also explained to him that we are proposing alternatives at this point. We think that the options where the entry and exit is on Blue Hill Avenue is better relative to impacts on abutters and whatnot, but those plans, if they were to be acceptable, would require zoning relief. I've made it clear to him. I made it clear to the chair of the Board of Appeals when I spoke to him yesterday that we would not be going to the Board of Appeals for a hearing unless we have complete agreement of the neighborhoods that one of the alternatives is more appropriate than the one that we can do as of right under zoning. We still have to address site plan approval considerations on that. We'll need to prepare a site plan that meets the requirements of site plan approval for option 1, but we will not proceed with either of the option 2 alternatives unless there's consensus that it's a better plan, that one of them is a better plan. So with that, I would move or request the board to agree in concurrence with Michael Fee, who was the attorney representing at least the abutter group, that we would continue this hearing until your next meeting on April 9.
I would approve the extension requested.
I'm sorry, Denny had a
I do have a question. I didn't mean to
question first.
Kathleen.
All right.
Oh, do you want me to go, Kathleen?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I noticed in the letter from the lawyer that's representing the neighborhood group that he was actually asking to meet when the state of emergency has lifted and we can have a public hearing where the citizens can come before us in person. Would you be willing to wait?
No, we agreed today that we would continue with the planning board schedule, and that the next meeting, April 9, would be the next opportunity to have a hearing. We thought that was important to keep everyone focused on trying to move the process, move our discussions along to see if we can get to an outcome.
Other members, Kathleen?
As I said, I saw the letter. Mike actually is a friend of mine, so he sent me that copy. And we had a little bit of a back and forth, but I think we should, go ahead and agree to the requested continuance and thank the applicant for giving us the ability to extend the time period until the next hearing.
Okay.
So this is April. I mean, I'm fine with that. But if this legislation passes, which it sounds like it will, we aren't necessarily bound to the applicant's suggested date. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, I think as of today, we can do what we can do. I mean, I wish somebody knew when the time period was about to expire, so we could be more informed about it, but the process will be told regardless of the applicant's decision whether or not to extend us if the legislation files that if the legislation that the governor filed passes, which I suspect it will. So I'm fine with April 9th, and we'll see what happens in the world between now and then.
Yeah, I spoke to town council today about that legislation, and they did not have any update as of this afternoon.
Yeah, it's in ways and means.
Right. So since we're proceeding with the requirements as they are now, it does require us to have the applicant's approval to continue. So we do have the applicant's approval to continue to April 9th. And I'd suggest that that's the best we can do right now. And if there's feedback from those who are on this call and meeting online about how this system is working, you want to give that feedback to the planning department between now and April 9th. We can, the sooner the better, actually, because this is our first meeting using this platform, and we did have discussions about what platform might be best to use. But I see that there's a chat, Bill, for. Okay.
Before we vote,
Yep.
before we go further, I do have a comment, but I'll wait.
Okay.
I'm looking up, it's 60 days from when the application is submitted that a board's supposed to be making a decision unless the applicant has consented to an extension.
Thanks, Kathleen. I'm trying to figure out when this was submitted, but it's not online. It's only the applicant's PowerPoint that's online.
I think the
I
application,
thought Bill said it was.
it was filed in early February. I don't have the specific date.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I think the hearing opened in your second meeting in February.
Yeah, on February 13th.
Right. We continued the second night, which would have been February 27th for a
Yeah.
site walk, which we conducted. We then had a neighbor meeting.
Yeah.
And then we were continued 2 weeks ago to tonight.
Right.
For transparency purposes, I think it's important for the public to know, especially the folks that we're concerned about us having this meeting, that the reason why we're doing it is we're legally bound to do it. We believe,
Yes.
and our council tells us we are. But again, there's legislation pending that would change that requirement. And if and when it passes, we can revisit. But that's really why I was looking for the explanation. So thank you.
Cheryl,
yes.
can I, so I agree with everything that's been said with the other members. I only would ask that, so, well, actually, question first. The letter that you got from Kevin with kind of what our purview is here, is that something that you've posted for folks?
No, I just
see.
received it at 5:30.
No, that's fine. All right, actually, better question. Will you be posting it? Sorry, I definitely don't mean, did you do it already?
Actually, I think it's just in the body of an email. Sorry. We can ask if that can be made into a PDF, I guess, the email.
It might help, only because,
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm trying to get to is, so we've got a number of things to consider. And I mean, I do commend Ned and the developer listening to the neighborhood. I mean, I absolutely think that's the right thing to do. Beyond that, though, we've got a number of things to consider, right, with safety and everything else. So I think it would be great to get some feedback from at least the ones that April was talking about. I don't know what else. I've got to look through and do some homework myself. If we're coming back, say, April 9th, and potentially it's even further, we've got, work to do before that happens for us to speak, to get into kind of the weeds.
Okay, so before we take a vote, I see there are 25 participants on this in this meeting. Bill or Mike, if you could unmute anyone who, I'm only going to ask if you have a question about process at the moment, because we're going to continue the discussion in terms of the concerns and merits to the 9th. So if there's anyone who, Bill, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you unmute everyone?
Mike?
Hello.
I'll sit.
Yep.
Hi, it's Michael Fee.
Okay, is there Michael Fee? Is there anyone else? Hearing none. Michael, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Fee Pearson Mandel in Boston. I represent a number of the neighbors. I did have a long discussion with Ned today that was very productive, and I think we're getting to the point where we're having some substantive discussions about the neighbors' concerns, which are mostly about traffic and the impact on the neighborhood from this level of use. So we're going to start to try and flesh that out in the next weeks or so. My question is about the process and what the board anticipates doing on April 9th. As you know, I did write that letter objecting to kind of the whole twilight zone of public participation that we're finding ourselves in right now. It's very, I think, strange and disconcerting for many of my clients to be participating in a public hearing in this fashion. And I know it's sort of the best we can do at the moment, but they don't, and I don't waive objection to holding these meetings by Zoom. I think it's inherently limited, and I understand that there are different feelings on that, but certainly I don't want the board to feel that my clients are of the opinion that these meetings should be happening in anything but real time with real participants. So I just wanted to note that for the board. If you do go forward on April 9th, what's the agenda? What's the process? What can we do to prepare and make sure that you understand the neighbors' viewpoints in the best, clearest way?
Right.
I'm
Yes,
sorry
any-
to interrupt. I'm getting emails from people who can't get into this meeting right now. I'm getting an email. I've tried unsuccessfully for 15 minutes to get into the Zoom site following the instructions put out by the planning board. I just wanted to alert you to that.
So we have, how many emails did you receive, Denny?
Well, I'm sorry, I received 2 from the same person.
From the same person. Okay. So we have 25 people on. Bill, those 25, can we ask, is there a way to ask those participants if they successfully got on through those instructions? Because they got on, and I'm not sure where else they would have gotten the instructions.
How else could they have gotten on?
Yeah. So I guess,
You can call, if the Zoom doesn't work, you can call in on a phone.
I'll try to tell them that.
it's on, the phone number is posted on the agenda.
The agenda? Okay, I'll tell them that.
Okay. In part, I think, Mr. Fee, we wanted to test this platform out tonight in a sense to see how well it would work. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, the select board had a meeting last night where they took comments on a 40B application that has a lot of neighbors very concerned. And they had about a half a dozen neighbors who were able to provide their live comments to the select board. This meeting is live on Milton Access Television and will also be available on their website. And until we get further instruction from the legislature and the governor, our understanding is that it's our responsibility to continue to hold our meetings. We'll do our best.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
our best.
Assuming you go forward on April 9, what's the plan?
My understanding is that the applicant has circulated basically 3 alternatives to interested neighbors. One that's would not require variances from the Board of Appeal, and then 2 which would require variances. So I think the board would like to hear how the discussions proceed in the next 2 weeks in response to those options that were circulated.
Okay.
Ned Corcoran, do you have any other comment to that? In
No, I
terms
think, unless in the next week we develop additional information or additional sort of material based on potential further conversations that I have with Michael and others, you know, our expectation was that we would at least present the evolution of the design options and allow people to raise questions and comments so that we'd be prepared to respond more fully down the road as appropriate. But we would certainly want to at least present those three options.
Okay. So Bill, I'm gonna, or Mike, I'm gonna ask one more time to unmute everyone to see if anyone else has a question about the process related to site plan approval for the Little Sprouts preschool. Is there
Oh,
anyone?
unmuted.
They're all unmuted. Okay, is there anyone who has a question regarding the process? Okay, seeing none, then I will take a motion to continue the public hearing for site plan approval for Little Sprouts Preschool at 919 Blue Hill Avenue to April 9th at 7:05.
I will move to continue the hearing on site plan approval on 919 Blue Hill Avenue, Little Sprouts Preschool to did you say 7:05?
That's what I said, yeah.
7:05 on April 9th.
Yes.
So Denny seconded it?
April.
April.
Sorry. Okay, we need to do, I believe we need to do a roll call vote. So Cheryl Tagayas, yes. April Amaro?
April Anderson, yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Kathleen O'Donnell?
Yes.
Rich Beeler?
Yes.
And Denny Swenson?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you,
Can I
everyone.
ask a quick question?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I know that the planning board the Board of Appeals is coming on behind you. I'm wondering, you've got some additional business to attend to. And then is it the same meeting platform, or do we start over with a new meeting platform? Do you know that, Bill?
It's the same platform.
Okay.
The planning board will keep going until 7:45, at which point we'll come back and allow the ZBA to do their continuance. In the meantime, the planning board can start its
Great.
7:15
Okay.
hearing.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay, so I'll now like to
I'm going to
Take
mute
the-
everybody. I'm going to mute everybody again, except for the planning board and it's the subdivision plan for 227 Pleasant Street. So
We're gonna
that will be
open the
Marion
public hearing.
and her team. Yes. So Marion's up, Stephen's up.
Sorry, I'm on another computer to check, and I'm not able to get in through phone calling. I could show, I'll take a picture of what's happening. I'm just afraid people can't join the call. Because earlier when I went in, you could pick phone call, but now you can't.
Okay, so I guess what I would say is if there's anyone who's watching this meeting on Milton Access Television who is having difficulty calling in or accessing the meeting, to please email Bill Clark, wclark@townofmilton.org. And we'll see if he can add you or Mike Lynch can add you. So again,
I would suggest that they go in through the Zoom.
okay,
Go to zoom.us, hit return. You'll get your own Zoom account. When you come into the Zoom account, then you're going to take and put in that number that is on the agenda. That is the 673-614-6329. When you put that number in, you'll be in the meeting.
So, Bill, you don't need the pound symbol before it, right?
No.
Okay. All right, so again, we're going to open the public hearing for
The
227.
number on the agenda.
Sorry?
Use the meeting ID number that's on the agenda when they
Okay.
go to Zoom.
Okay. My suggestion would be, Bill, if you could describe for us what our responsibilities are relative to preliminary subdivision submission or approval. This is not the final for the subdivision. And so this will not be our only opportunity to talk about this application.
Correct.
Don't you need to open the public hearing for this?
I did.
I do, and I have another issue that because of the way Milton Cable Access records its meetings, we're going to keep this one going until it's a little bit after 7:45. It's depending on how long the board's going to take with 227 Pleasant Street, and they're going to take with 25 Bryant Ave. ZBA is coming in right behind us, and we need to vacate so that they can come back on, which I'm sorry is counter to what Ned said, but I'll take care of Ned now.
I'm sorry, Bill. So what's going to happen at 7:45?
We need to speed up our meeting so that they can take over.
It's 3 minutes to 7:45. So how are we going to do that?
Keep going. They'll go till 8. The chairman of ZBA is sitting right beside me. He's at the far end of the table, so he's more than 10 feet away.
All right. Please give the board an overview of our responsibilities at this stage of the public hearing.
We need to look at the preliminary subdivision for 227 Pleasant Street, and we need to look at the site plan approval for 25 Bryant Ave.
Right, but the preliminary subdivision, we want to give feedback on what we see, what additional information we might like to see.
Before we get to the definitive subdivision, yes.
Okay, so Marion McKettrick has, I think, a short presentation she'd like to make or a statement she'd like to make. So Marion, go ahead.
Carol, before we do that, can I ask one question?
Sure.
We have 45 days to render a decision on this. Is that correct? No?
Yes.
No.
45 days from submission or 45 days from?
Submission.
And recall, this is one we continued from our last meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So this was submitted February 28th? Is that what this was? February 28th. Okay, thank you.
It was submitted February 28th.
Yes, February 28th
Mhm.
at 1:38 p.m.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. Please
So
go ahead.
I understand you have limited time. I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible. Our engineer, Jim Burke, is here. And Kyle Harnish, who is the developer, is here. So if there are specific questions, they can be directed to them, or just as you said, what we're interested in finding out tonight is the planning board has had this application detail for several weeks now, and I'm hoping some of you have had a chance to review it and that you may have some specific questions and some requests for more information. But in any case, this site is on Pleasant Street. It's a approximately 76,000 square foot area of land. It's in a residency district. So those are 7,500 square foot area requirement in the C district. It was the location of a single family home constructed in 1924. There used to be a nursery here called Pine Gardens. And so the developer has taken that name and wants to use it for the development and wants to name the short private way Pine Garden Way. The site is surrounded by residential development on Dean Road and on Pleasant Street. The house on this site has been removed. We had a full hearing before the Milton Historical Commission. They decided the house was not worthy of preservation. However, they agreed and have asked the developer to keep all the granite from the house foundation, and that's going to be used on the site. It will be used on walls. It could be used in some of the housing. It's very likely that those granite blocks came from an old quarry located in the conservation land to the rear of this property. The land slopes up from the street and then levels off. The owners purchased this property from an estate in September 2019. They've been studying the property. They've done test borings. They found that most of the site has a kind of loose soil that may have been fill brought into the site, possibly when Pleasant Street was constructed. The only granite ledge they found was at the upper right-hand corner of the property. And at this time, it's not anticipated that it will have to be disturbed, but we'd follow proper procedures if it did have to be. We have had one meeting with neighbors before the COVID-19 crisis developed, and that was on Saturday, March 7th. We invited neighbors to come to the site, and quite a few neighbors did attend. The developer was there, the engineer was there, both developers actually. It's Kyle Harnish and Brian Pasquantonio. And we explained the proposed plan. We showed each page of the plan. We talked about what the lots would be like, what the houses would be like. We talked about work hours and conditions. And the neighbors provided contact information. And then, as you know, the hearing on the 12th was postponed. I did stay for a while that night because I had to go to another meeting. And there were some neighbors who came. So I was able to, and none of them were neighbors that we had met previously. So I was able to talk to those neighbors, explain a little bit about this development. I got contact information from them. And since that time, I have emailed all neighbors, and anyone who wanted a full set of plans electronically, I have sent the plans to them. We did plan to have a larger indoor meeting. We're not going to be able to do that at this time. One of the interesting features of this site is that there's conservation land to the rear. This is land that was deeded to the town in 1972 by the Bernard Lindsay Trust, and it contains a quarry. It's quite rough, but it's fully wooded, very rocky. And the quarry has been filled because at one, historically, apparently there was a drowning in that quarry. There's a deeded easement to get into that land across lots on Dean Road. The development proposal is for a 5-lot development with a very short private way that'll terminate in a cul-de-sac right next to the conservation land. And this will provide emergency access to the land, which currently only exists over that easement, which is part of neighboring yards. The lots will be about 10,000 square feet, so larger than they're required to be. The developers are requesting 3 waivers from subdivision regulations. 1 to allow paved roadway width of 20 feet, 1 to allow a right-of-way width of 40 feet rather than 50 feet, and 1 to allow a sidewalk on only one side of the private way. And these design features are intended to make this development look more like the surrounding streets. It'll be more in keeping with the neighborhood. And the road is short, and it's going to be a private way maintained by the owners of the lots. In addition to providing a site plan on 10 pages, the applicants also have provided full conceptual landscaping plans for the perimeter of these lots, and then an example of a landscaping plan for a lot, a house lot. And the landscaper is here tonight, so she could answer questions if you have questions about that. There is one change we propose making to the perimeter plans after some comments we received, and that is that the planting will be moved back from the drainage structures that right are on the edge of the road, so that the roots will not interfere with those drainage structures in the future. So that will be shown in the final plan that we submit to the planning board. And so the reason to give you the landscaping plans now and to be as complete as possible is to get as many comments as possible from you and to improve the development plan to the best of our ability. We have a draft construction management plan that we've submitted already. We've submitted a draft declaration of trust. I've already made some edits to that and sent it back to you. Kathleen O'Donnell was kind enough to give me some good edits for that. In terms of project benefits and impact, this development proposes 5 rather than 6 lots. It will create a very attractive small neighborhood, and there'll be more yard area for each lot with this plan. The intent is to beautify the area, improve property values, and create a small, friendly neighborhood that fits in with the existing neighborhood. There should be minimal impact on traffic. The new private way will provide better public safety access to the town land at the rear of the property. The homes will have substantial property tax value, although they are likely to contribute additional students to the public schools. So with the board's permission, I'd like to ask Jim Burke, who is our engineer. I see his face on the screen in front of me. Are we going to be able to display the plans on the screen? I thought there was a chance we could do that. If not, we'll just talk.
So Marion, I'm going to share my screen, and I have the grading plan on my laptop screen right now. Would that suffice in terms of a plan, or do you want all of them?
No, well, whatever you can do. I mean, it's easier to talk about this if there's something for people to see.
Right, I've got them all here too. It's just the PDF quality is, I found earlier when I did a test of this meeting with Bill that it was a little bit blurry. So I'm going to go with the one I've got here open. I think I am. Bill, is it going? There, no, let's see. Bill, you have to, I'm disabled my ability to share my screen, or Mike, can
Mike,
somebody
can you do the share?
that?
Allow her to share. Mike?
You want to just hold it up?
There's a, have you been able to change that, Bill?
I asked him, but I think what I'll do is just do it myself.
Yeah.
Screen.
No luck, Bill?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Coming.
Well, while you're working on that, Marion, I'll see if, I do have a couple of comments I can pass on the construction management plan. Wait, Bill's sharing it now, but that's you, Bill, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep. You've got it.
Okay. Okay.
All
I know
right.
you want to get down to the bigger one in the end, but go ahead.
Jim, do you have the existing condition plan there, Bill, quickly?
Yes. Wait, wrong one.
It should be in the same set.
Yeah.
This one.
There you go.
All right, so, so Jim, if you just, run through what's been demolished there, and then Bill, you can quickly go to, or shortly thereafter, go to the next one, which is the proposed.
Yep.
Yeah, so the single-family house is the only thing that's been demolished. I mean, the rest of the lot itself is maintained as is. I mean, you can see the tree line. It's wooded towards the rear with a lawn out front. It's got several sheds. I'm not too. Darren, are the sheds removed too as well? Or?
No, we're taking, the shed removal is going to be slow because we have to make sure we do thorough rodent control when we do that, because they have stuff in them that makes them prone to
Right.
rodents.
The property, you know, is serviced by public water, but, you know, sewer, overhead electric and the like. It has one curb cut. The driveway is actually in a similar location where we're proposing our private drive as well. You know, the topography, it probably goes from about 30 feet vertically from the back to where the ledge is down to where the northerly corner is on Pleasant Street to about 118. So there's a good gradient across that property. And what we're proposing to do is subdivide that into.
Bill, go to the next sheet, please.
You want to go to the layout?
Go to the next plan, Bill. Just
Well, that's a construction management plan. If you want to go to the layout plan.
yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Division
Just go
plan.
to the grading plan.
Okay, that works.
There we go.
So what we're proposing is the roadway there. It's a 40-foot with a 20-foot wide pavement width, sloped granite edging. We've got a 3% leveling area at Pleasant Street for about 50 feet. Then it ramps up to 10% gradient to catch up to the grade to minimize grading on the site. Comes to the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is a 100-foot layout with an 80-foot curb-to-curb radius diameter, and with a 40-foot diameter landscape island in the center. The cul-de-sac itself levels out to 2.5% and peaks towards the ledge, towards the southerly portion of the lot. The lots themselves have been kind of platformed for future construction. They flattened out the grades to get them to work. We had to use some retaining walls to accomplish that with the 10% grade and 2 curb cuts coming off that 10% grade area. So there were some retaining walls that allow us to create flat building lots in those areas. If you want to switch to the next one, we can talk utilities real quick.
Jim, before you, or Bill, before you change plans, I do have some concerns about the grading plan and the number of retaining walls. And I had marked on a plan on my screen so I could identify them more clearly. But Bill, if you could point out, so if you take the upper left lot, 3 of the 4 sides of that parcel have, no, upper left, other side. 3 of the 4 sides of that parcel have retaining walls, and and I'm concerned about the retaining wall that's at the top, which would be very close to the abutter, and the impact of that retaining wall on any existing trees that may have root balls that go into beyond the property line in some way. We've just to construct the retaining wall there, where if you can see, this one's not as tall as some others, but if you scroll down, Bill, now a little further to the next lot down, this one has retaining walls on 3 sides as well. You can see the proposed walls just with the cut there for the driveway. Bill, slide to the right, please. And then this one, the top of the wall is called out as elevation 145, and the bottom of the wall on the other side is called out 136.6. So you're looking at a 9-foot retaining wall. And then as you go left past that existing garage, the top of the wall is called out at 137, but the grade to the left of the existing garage is 141. So it seems to me that there's some work to be done on that wall. And then Bill, scroll up a bit. You've got a retaining wall that kind of goes through this cul-de-sac by the sidewalk there. And, you know, there's a lot of topographic work that's being done here. And I think I saw, Marion, in your in the package that we have, that your intention was to submit some sections and some information about the cut and fill. I just really think that's important to understand how this is working. So
Yeah,
that's,
some of the actual plans are attached garages that are, you know, very limited steps into the first floor. So their goal really was to get some flat lots for the proposed. I can take a look at how we can, you know, reduce some of those retaining walls. I think,
well, Jim, the ones that I'm most concerned about, Bill, if you'll zoom back out a little bit. Where are we getting the quick that whole property line on the bottom there is, you know, against neighbor, and again, pretty close to the property line. And I think we just need to make sure that we understand how those retaining walls are working and the impact that they may have on those abutting properties, I think, is just important, because it's also obviously affects your storm drainage, because you're, if you go to the top right lot there, Bill, you're pushing the grades towards the neighbor to the top there, and then it's going to be steep right at the property line, and so or steeper. So it seems to me that creates a runoff problem for those two neighbors at the top. I'd like you to address that. So where you're going from 35 down to 133 to, you know, for your pad. I mean, maybe it's
the watershed area going to that particular direct is reduced significantly, and the numbers bear that out in the stormwater management report.
okay.
So even though, I mean, that's a 3-to-1 slope, very manageable slope. It certainly can be vegetated to disperse any sort of runoff heading in that direction. But the runoff going in that direction is significantly reduced.
Yeah, all right. Well, the thing is, you're creating a flat pad and you're pushing the topography towards the neighbor. And I'd like you to consider whether you can't adjust that. You're taking the 135 contour that's in the middle of the lot right now, and you're pushing it all the way close to the property line. And, you know, a site section through here is showing that cut and fill where there's a baseline of the existing, and you show in a tone what your fill is, I think would be useful to understand that, and cut that through at each one of these lots.
We can do that. But I think the stormwater itself, especially going in that direction, works well.
Okay. You've got a cul-de-sac, is that right? Right there on the property lines?
No, it's actually, there's 6-foot diameter, 6-foot deep concrete leaching pits.
And
So,
Bill, has
just-
John Thompson reviewed this for the stormwater? Or did he recommend we get a outside
peer
reviewer?
review. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes, a peer review. I reviewed his letter. I
And he
took
did
it.
peer review, right?
Yeah, he requested a peer review. I have no problem with that. And
DPW asked for peer review.
yes.
Of the stormwater, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I know just because of the time limits, I want to see Mary and Jim, if board members have other questions or things they'd like to see at our next meeting regarding this application.
Do we have the letters from the town engineer or from DPW?
Those should have gotten forward to you today, I believe, Bill. Did those
Oh.
get forwarded?
I didn't have a chance to review.
No, I
I
didn't
was
see
doing
that.
something else. Can you say it again, please?
Did you review the letters? I received them, I believe, yesterday. Did those letters get forwarded to the rest of the board members?
Everything got sent to the board.
Yeah, I think some of it got sent today, but, so check your emails and see if you have it.
As soon as he sent them to me, I sent them to the board.
So yesterday, everybody got them yesterday, okay.
I had one question.
Yes, Denny?
The cul-de-sac looks awfully close to the property line. Are they seeking a variance for that?
I'm not sure you need a variance for that, but the cul-de-sac layout doesn't touch the rear property line.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Jim?
I said that the cul-de-sac layout does touch the rear property line.
Is that, don't they need a variance for that? There seems to be, like, I'm not sure what that, there's a visual of, is it a stone wall that goes through the, I'm sorry.
That's lead.
I'm sorry, what is that?
That's ledge.
Ledge.
Ledge, okay. So the cul-de-sac is gonna cut into ledge?
Yes.
You're gonna have to cut out ledge in order to put in the cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Yes, although it's not in the paved area.
So is that a right of way around it? Is that, so it would be the right of way, like utilities or things could go into that? Is that the idea? To cut into the ledge?
There is no proposal for any utilities to in that direction. It's
Grass area and sidewalk.
Was the sidewalk?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the conservation land abutting it?
Yes.
Correct.
All right, Bill has alerted me via chat that the ZBA would like for, due to this platform not being able to accommodate 2 meetings at one time, for us to take a 15-minute recess to allow the ZBA to open their meeting and continue their hearings. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, 4 of them. So it might take 20 minutes.
So what does that mean in terms of everybody stays logged into this?
No, everybody logs out, come back in 20 minutes.
All right, well, that's not ideal, I guess, but
I can't,
to
I can only,
8:30?
I have to start the next meeting. This meeting has to end.
Okay, so in consideration that the Board of Appeals meeting was scheduled to begin at 7:30, and it is now nearly 8:10, I'd like to have the planning board go into recess and resume at 8:30.
And the purpose, Cheryl, is to just take up the remainder of this conversation, then 25 Bryant Ave.
Yes. Okay. Anybody object to that, board members? Marion?
No, that's fine. I assume everybody who logged in at 6:10 is still going to be there. I asked them to be. So,
Yeah, and
thank you. I understand.
yes, and we do apologize for
No, I understand.
this was our first one out of the blocks. We were learning as we go. All right, so everyone, please leave the meeting and rejoin at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Division application, and we are in public hearing for that. So we were discussing the site plan and some of the questions, concerns about retaining walls and grading. And then there had been a question about whether stormwater had been reviewed by the town engineer, and we said that town engineer had requested peer review, and the applicant has agreed to having your review of the stormwater design, I believe. Is that right, Marion and Jim?
That's correct.
Okay, so, great. So board members, other questions or comments about the application?
I do. Can you?
Mhm.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. So, and feel free to, somebody can throw something at me for this question. It might be off the wall, but the context is I work in the residential and commercial energy efficiency space. And so as we're seeing new developments around the country, a lot of folks are not bringing gas utility on property to just bring electric. Are you guys doing anything like that? And I'm not throwing it out there that it must be done here. It's just, is that something that you guys are doing as well, or not doing now, or is it a crazy idea, or?
Of not bringing gas on the
Yeah,
campus?
right.
Right now, let me just check. I think we're bringing the gas. Yeah,
So,
yes, we have, right now we're proposing gas service for the lots.
so I think Rich's question has to do with, there's an interest.
There's gas for the utility plan.
Right. No, I see the gas on there. I'm just wondering if that's something that they've ever thought of avoiding bringing gas on property.
The reason that people are going in that direction is that it allows for more clean energy as new power plants come online that take advantage more of renewable energy. It doesn't tie these properties to the gas. So there are some communities that are going that way, and there seems to be more interest in it. But
there's more of a drive for fuel switching and electrification
right.
all over the country.
Well, didn't Brookline prohibit new gas connections last year?
Yeah, I didn't know which one did, but I had heard that as well. So, I mean, it's something that I think more places are going to, and you'll probably hear me asking developers during more things that they're bringing forward, like, is there an opportunity to not? I mean, I personally don't know what it does to your economics at all, or does it hurt your property at all? Or, I mean, I would think it would be a good thing, but.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not prepared to answer that, whether we're showing the gas because that is, the gas is available. But I can certainly look into the benefits, the pros and cons of that particular issue.
Cool.
One of the things that it ties to is an initiative by the governor to get to net zero by, I think his mark was 2030. And in order to do that, there needs to be some pretty aggressive changes made in the way we construct our buildings and the utilities that are used. So I think it's going to be a topic, Rich, that, as you said, is going to need to continue to take place.
Yeah, and in some areas, I mean, I don't work in the programs here in Mass anymore, but I did at one time work at the utility. And a lot of times there's money available for developers for different energy efficiency things. And so I don't know if I just don't know if there is any more for this, but I'm just saying, it's, to your point, yeah, I mean, folks are starting to get more aggressive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm just not too sure what that does to the economics. And for that matter, you know, what the electric bill would be for a single family house, and as opposed to, you know, using electric for heat. But I understand what you're saying.
Well, how are you providing heat? Is it gas heat in these houses?
Yes.
Yes, it's certainly cheaper. You know, and then the alternative, I mean, for with oil, which again just flies in the face of the gas. So,
right.
No, electric is the way you probably go, not oil. I mean,
and, right. So everything's electric. I just remember paying my entire that electric bill. Everything was electric and it was catastrophic. but, you know, things may have changed. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah. There's a lot of technologies out there to bring that bill down. So yeah, it's something, I mean, yeah, I would imagine you guys probably have somebody that knows more about this you can probably chat with. And if there's an opportunity there, that'd be cool.
And I just want to chime in that we are a stretch code community, so all of the new construction here is meeting a higher energy standard anyways, so line code. So new construction will be much more efficient than anything we would have seen without this. And that evolves every couple of years when the international codes increase.
Any other questions for Marion, Jim, or Kyle?
Any?
I had a question.
Denny, sorry, I didn't see your, I gotta move it over here. Go ahead.
I was wondering how many you'll be taking down.
Say it again?
How many trees are you planning to take down?
I can get that count. We'll have to send the guy, we may have it already. I'll have to check. That we've talked about saving. But I'll have that information for you at a later date.
Okay.
So I would say, looking at your grading plan and your storm drainage plans, you can't save a single tree on that property. As much regrading and where you're putting those storm drainage structures and the roadways, et cetera. I can't see how you're saving any, but I think it would be worthwhile to have you take account.
We can do that.
And then did we see anything that sort of shows the visual of how those retaining walls look to the people that are abutting them?
That's what I asked for earlier, Kathleen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we have to provide that.
Yeah. Because I'm a little concerned about that.
It's an
And
issue.
then I just had one other question. So the idea is that you're going to be, Kyle, you're going to be building all the houses with the designs that are on the plans that you've provided. You're not putting.
That is a conceptual idea. I'm not married to that specific design. I just gave it as a reference point for you to get an idea of the style of home that I traditionally build in the town.
Okay.
And that's just kind of my taste, but I'm not married to that specifically just yet.
All right. Thanks.
I had another question.
Denny, go ahead.
I noticed that you wanted to do sidewalk on one side of the street and you wanted a waiver to not do it on both sides. Generally, when I give waivers, or I'm supportive of waivers, I like to see public good. So I wanted to think about, maybe I'm concerned if you're taking all the trees down or the majority of the trees down, there's going to be a lot of pervious ground now, a lot of pavement, roof area, everything like that. Maybe if you were to do something like put trees on the side that didn't have the sidewalk, that could be a public good, something along those lines, because we are losing a lot of trees on the site. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I understand that concern. We're trying to mitigate that as much as possible. That's why I provided a landscape plan, as detailed as I possibly could, with the species of trees that are all native to Massachusetts. They are basically shown on the plot plan for now, for the whole perimeter. And then I also, in the drawing of the actual house, that shows what each landscaped lot would look like. And this was a concern of some of the neighbors when I met them up on site a few weeks back, and I addressed all this and basically showed them this to help ease some of those concerns. And I also intend to, with the trees that I am removing from the property, I intend to cut them down and slab them up. And you can, if you visit the site today, you could see an old oak tree that's been slabbed into basically 8 to 10 foot white oak slabs. And I would intend to put those back into the homes as pieces of furniture, a coffee table, a bar, what have you.
So that's beautiful. I am concerned. I did look at the plant list and the and the landscaping, and I thought you did a thorough job there. I just noticed that in this case, you're replacing trees with smaller ornamental shrubs and plants, much smaller than what, you're talking about big oak trees coming down. So I'm
Yeah.
just looking for,
The majority of the larger trees are at the rear over by the quarry. There's about 2 on the back. Yeah, that area there. And I think there's one additional one towards the front. And I actually, in the conversations with the neighbors at the site, they actually requested that those come down, which was interesting to me.
okay. Are they a safety issue?
Yes, one of them abuts, I believe it's the Murphy lot. He in particular made a comment, and I mean, I have yet to do anything on that area because we have sheds that still exist over there, and I have concerns about rodents and whatnot, so I'm gonna work through that process. But there is 1 or 2 oak trees on that side that people did mention if we could remove, but I haven't agreed to any of that just yet.
They're right in this area here.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know how my fellow board members feel about this, but I am concerned about that cul-de-sac going right up to the property line and into the ledge. And I understand we're abutting conservation land. I don't know how others might feel of having possibly less pavement or possibly reshaping that.
Has Concom given an opinion yet?
Sorry.
Has Concom given an opinion yet about coming up
I
to
haven't
their
heard.
property?
Oh.
Conservation
Not to my
Commission.
knowledge.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't believe we've heard from them yet. Marion, maybe you can speak on that. The reason the cul-de-sac, from my opinion, was we talked with the fire department, and the idea was we could get a fire truck up there and turn around. The fire truck could come right up to the edge of the property and be able to access that abandoned quarry, to service, to help anybody if anybody gets stuck up there. That was the intent there.
Okay, I don't want to infringe on safety. I was just trying to help the pervious issue that I see.
Can I make a comment there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the question the planning board might want to look at is whether you need to have a sidewalk going around the cul-de-sac. I mean, that definitely adds impervious surface. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I mean, it's designed right now to go all the way around. And I just think maybe you could think about that and have some comments for us. I had thought, I just wasn't sure why you needed it to go all the way around like that. As far as going up to the lot line with the right-of-way, I don't know of any legal reason why you can't do that. But I think reduction of impervious surface is always desirable. That's why we're asking for a narrower roadway. That's why we're asking for sidewalk on only one side, and also to make it look less urban, I guess. So what is the planning board? I wondered do you have any comments on that? Whether it should go around the cul-de-sac?
Well, personally for me, I was happy to see a request for a waiver for the reduction of the of the tarmac. I don't think it needs to be the requirement. One of the things that we've been looking at all along is to sort of start to take a look at our subdivision rules and regulations and adapt them for newer circumstances and newer concerns. And certainly, tarmacking the world is not one of the things we want to be doing. So I think that's, something we could be discussing with the plan, is to say, do we need that much paving? I understand the difference between laying out a right of way. It's like laying out a road and you only pave 20 instead of the 40-foot layout. So I can see that, we could maybe take a look at the sidewalk situation.
Yeah, I have no trouble with 20-foot width of roadway. I have no trouble with sidewalk on one side only for a road of this length. And it's really, I guess, if you are the lot, I don't know if the lots are numbered, but the lot at the bottom right would be the only one. If you took it away from around the cul-de-sac, that would be the only lot that didn't have you had to go into the roadway to get to the sidewalk. And at that point, it's just one neighbor who's using that roadway. So, I mean, that's a lot of surface area that could go back to pervious. So I'm inclined to think that that's okay to remove that section of sidewalk if others.
Do we have any other streets like this in the town that have a cul-de-sac like this? I mean, I know of some that just like a dead end, so I'm not sure, how that works for the fire station to turn around. This seems like it'd probably be easier, but I'm just.
I actually think it's nice to have the landscape in the middle. That gives a little more pervious area and kind of narrows that roadway up. Because if some cul-de-sacs might not have all of that area just be paved. Is that right, Jim? You've been involved in a lot of things in Milton, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I guess a lot of the times it's the fire department that kind of doesn't like the center cul-de-sac. But we've done auto turn radius. Fire truck from Milton fits all the way around. I don't think they'd be concerned. I like it too.
Beechwood Lane would be the one that I calls to mind.
Isn't there one right down off of Plymouth Street? Charlie Bosworth built it.
No, well, there's one right near us over in East Milton on off of Church Street. And I'm looking at that on Google Earth. That doesn't have a center island.
No, it doesn't.
And it kind of looks like they may have some, yeah.
It's a bit of a different,
It was a different use of houses, a different type of houses.
Yeah.
That
right.
was veteran housing when it got built.
Yeah, it's also a very different look to the cul-de-sac than this is.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, to be honest, the inspiration behind it was Beechwood, as Bill Clark said.
Okay.
No, I like it.
There's a landscape island at the end in the middle of the cul-de-sac at Beechwood. They've got, I think, 6 to 8 trees planted in there. 4 of them are river birch, so they look pretty nice.
One of the things I would, well, are we ready to move off the cul-de-sac, folks?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I would say in terms of your home designs is that sometimes we have these small subdivisions where the side that faces the main street, so that's in this case Pleasant, the sides are not very pleasant. So they really have like 2 fronts in a sense. So as you look at those of the architecture for those home designs, please take that into consideration.
Yeah, the modeling that we gave you from my architect who's going to be on the project, Joe Genduso, does a lot in Milton, and I wanted to provide that in the schematic design to show you what the Pleasant Street view would look like. And if you have the drawing here, I don't know if you have it.
I do. I have it on my desk. Bill, do you have it there to put on the screen?
So it's the farmer's porch wrapped around. The 2-car garage would be on the opposite side. So it's the right side elevation.
Right, I saw that. I like the fact that the porch wraps around.
Yep.
And that you've got the gables on both sides. I mean, I think architecturally, what you submitted looks nice. You did say you're not married to it, but hopefully it'll say something equally nice.
Yes, it's definitely going to be equally or as nice. I don't want you. I'm not married to the specific finish of it yet, but architecturally, design sense wise, I'm a fan of gables, and this kind of architecture is what I will be targeting. I don't know if I'll be doing cedar shake versus a different type of siding. I'm not certain on that yet, but stylistically, this is basically what you're going to achieve. I'm looking to get the wraparound farmer's porch, the 2-car garage on the opposite side, and several roof lines. And that's typical of my construction if you've seen it throughout town, and also typical of Joe Genduso, the architect.
So there it is.
Okay.
So just so members of the public who might be watching, Bill, can you show the wraparound porch there and with your cursor on the plan and then on the elevations? Yeah.
His on the elevation,
right.
His on the front. Here it is here. and on one side.
So if you point out Pleasant Street on that first floor plan, and then you show now, right, that's
Here.
Pleasant Street, right? Now show the porch. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So the elevation that you would see from Pleasant Street is called right side, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
that would be it.
And I like the attention to detail on the garage doors and the sort of roof over the doors, which could tie into the roof lines of the porch. So
That was one thing, not to interrupt, but that was one thing that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the grading and Jim Burke. And kind of his explanation is I requested that we have the garage on that side so they're not viewed from the street, and I didn't want a garage under given the grade issues. So I asked that we would get, you know, our grades more into these platform styles so I can gradually go up, which in turn causes the retaining walls as we go up the lots. So that's the explanation behind that, with the garage being on the side. That was kind of me pushing for that.
So I guess the question would be if you might just look at that a little more carefully, see how tall those retaining walls are getting, so that you can kind of bring them down a little bit, not to be tall walls.
Understood.
Okay. Anybody else have any feedback that they want to provide to the applicant here?
I just have a question, Carol. What is the, doing a preliminary site plan, what is the public engagement?
We're going to ask for public comment next.
After that? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, no. So Bill, can you unmute everyone, or Mike Lynch, unmute everyone? Let me know when that's done.
Okay, Joe Sloan doesn't want to, and Galaxy A10 doesn't want to. But
Yeah,
otherwise,
unmute.
everybody else is.
All right, so are there those who have been unmuted who would like to provide comments or to ask questions regarding this application? If so, say your name, please. Okay. Hearing none. Bill, can you mute everyone again? Except
Oh, sure.
board members?
I do have a statement that the woman who lives next door did ask that we talk to the applicant about a fence.
Okay. And
The
that
first house on Dean Road. She wanted some kind of a nice looking fence.
Okay, so that ties back to my question before about retaining wall close to that property line. So I think it would be good, Jim, if you could show the trees that would be potentially impacted on the abutting properties.
It was this lady here.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because that way we'll have, especially, yeah, I mean, particularly where there's regrading very close, or these walls very close, because, you know, maybe the neighbor needs to understand, you know, the size of the wall. And, you know, maybe you could offer to do some landscaping rather than a fence, or, you know, something that we all, you know.
I think that's kind of what they are doing, is they're putting in more trees in this area. I do know that they're taking down one big one here, but they're planting more in here. And yes, I heard Denny's comments about these are smaller in brush, but I guess paying attention to the detail that's in here and giving an explanation to that, how much of it is going to be able to hide yard from yard.
So my question earlier though about that tree, those new trees being shown right there by the property line, and it's common for trees to be that close, that root ball is going to go into the neighbor's property eventually too. And so that's my concern, is that there's a tree on the other side of that property line in some of those backyards that could be impacted by construction, particularly of retaining walls and regrading. And I don't know these backyards, so I'm just raising it as something that I'd like the applicant to address. It's just so that we're comfortable and, you know, with what we see and what the impacts, if there are impacts, that they're mitigated.
Okay.
Okay, so Bill, anything else, Marion? Sorry.
Cheryl, you mentioned something about the construction management plan. If you're running short of time, you maybe could send comments, but I'd be happy to hear any if you want.
It just, what I was just talking about with the trees is one thing, but also something that we've run into elsewhere is stockpiling of earth and rock, especially if you're going to be removing a lot of trees and trunks and stone. We don't want mountains, and we don't want there to be mountains next to the property lines where it might impact neighbors' trees.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I had was related to the hours of construction. Knowing that Cullicott and Cunningham Elementary Schools are not far away down Pleasant Street, and, you know, with deliveries, we might want some consideration of the times of school start and end.
Okay, I'm pretty familiar with those hours.
Yeah.
So I'll put some added language in there
Okay.
to be careful about deliveries during those times, and it is very congested, you're right.
Okay.
And here, I have a question. Do we usually allow construction on Sundays?
Well, I looked that up. That's our town bylaw.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah,
All right.
we didn't allow it in all of our special permits, but it is in our.
Well, I
bylaw.
don't know which version you're looking at, but we don't have construction on Sundays in this. I updated it.
It's in your request. Maybe it was the earlier.
No, I changed it though. And that's
Okay.
because we talked to the neighbors about it, and we didn't really intend to make it as broad as the town bylaw, but we had to ask them first what their preferences were.
Okay,
So
great.
there's an updated version that I sent you this week, and you'll find it, and it will, I'll tell you what it says. It says Monday to Friday, 7 to 6, Saturday, 8 to 5, and no work on Sunday, and legal holidays, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, great.
You'll see the link.
Better, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, any other comments, board members?
Just for what it's worth, I've been hovering around the Google Streets looking at that property right there, and definitely there seem like a lot of trees through the yard from that neighbor. So it would be good. Your comments, I agree with all those comments, but it would be good to see if there's something that, you know, if there's something appropriate. Obviously, I'm looking at a picture, so I don't know. But.
I don't know that area very well. If there are a lot of deer in the neighborhood, boxwood might not be an ideal shrub. They ate mine to the ground. But that's not a planning board order, but I'm just.
Yeah, something to think about.
All right, so Bill.
We'll look into that.
Okay. It's
Yes,
just,
there are deer in that neighborhood.
okay, unfortunately. Everywhere.
So Bill, remind us, with preliminary, do we close a public hearing on preliminary and then we open a new one when it's the definitive?
This is a public meeting, and
Public meeting, okay.
so you're going to give them direction for their definitive submittal.
Okay. So we've done that. We just gave them direction.
That's
it. Okay, so that's it. We don't need a continuation of any sort.
No.
Okay.
Can I have
Well, thank you all, and thanks for hanging in for as long as you all did.
I just had one last question.
Sure.
You're on the site currently. Are any of them historic?
Is what historic?
Any of the structures on the property currently?
No, Kyle can answer that question, or Marion. They went to the
we had a
Historic
full
Commission.
hearing. We had a full hearing before the Historic Commission because the house was built in 1924. So it does fall within the bylaw, the demolition delay bylaw. And they decided that it was not worthy of preservation, which is the second step of their decision making. So we were able to take the house down. And the accessory structures are the same. The reason they haven't been taken down is because we want to be very careful about protecting from rodent spread and that kind of thing. But we will be taking them down.
Okay, thank you.
One of the other things to add to it is when the house was taken down, before they took it down, it was offered to the fire department for training. So the fire department did go in and do a whole lot of training on that building. Doors,
Well, that's
windows, roofs. So it had a purpose before it was taken down.
Nice.
That's cool. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all. We're going to move on now to our next agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, our site plan approval for 25 Bryant Ave. Marion, you have a statement that you want to provide for us. You provided us with an application. You want to give us an overview?
Sure. So 25 Bryant Avenue is a commercial building. It's in the business district. And you may be familiar, you may or may not be familiar with it, but it's one of those buildings that we pass all the time. We look at it, we say, oh, you know, what is that? And then you just don't think about it. I mean, it's not very interesting looking on the outside. It's an office building. It's been used as an office building since it was first constructed. It's on a lot of 3,470 square feet, and the building occupies almost 100% of the lot. So there isn't really much of a site here, but there are issues for site plan review because there are some changes being proposed to the exterior of the building. This building looks directly over the expressway. It's at the corner of Boulevard Street and Bryant Avenue, so a very high traffic area. And there are first floor entrances to the existing building, one on Bryant Avenue and one at the corner of Bryant Avenue and Boulevard Street. The person who has purchased this building is a doctor, a dentist. He's going to locate his practice in the first floor of the building. And for the time being, he's just going to have additional office space for his own employees on the second floor because he's not going to invest in a new elevator to the second floor. And when you're renovating a building as substantially as this one, if you were going to have public access, you'd have to have a new elevator for the second floor. The other issues that he's had to deal with extensively pretty much all relate to handicapped access. So here's a picture of the building. And although it's really kind of hard to see, the two doors are not exactly level with the sidewalk. One is 4 inches above, one is 5 inches above. That means that neither door is handicapped accessible. And we have struggled with a number of different solutions to this plan, including going back to the town, which has already put out to bid all of the reconstruction work for East Milton Square and asking them whether they could change the bid specs. In the end, the best solution arrived at so far is that the door facing Bryant Ave, the level of the door sill is going to be lowered to the ground, which requires some internal reconstruction. The door in the corner, for the time being, we don't know how that will be used because we probably have to go to the State Access Board to talk to them about it. And a new door is going to be constructed on the Boulevard Avenue side of the building, Boulevard Street side, I'm sorry. And that door will be level with the ground, so it will be handicapped accessible. One reason you need two doors in this building is because the travel distance inside the building is more than a certain number of feet, so that you need two entrances and exits. It's taken quite a while to figure out the solution to that problem, which is why it took us from September when the owner purchased the building to now to file this site plan for you to review. The changes that you would be interested in addition to the door changes, are that the owner proposes taking out the upstairs windows, and you've received an architectural plan that shows you, that's the plan, that shows you that the new windows will be taller windows, and there won't be any decorative inset between the windows on the second story anymore. The first floor windows will be replaced, but they will be the same size, and that center area will just become a plain separation. The owner is going to replace the siding on the upper part of the building. So remember, you looked at the existing building that has white siding. It's not in very good condition on the upper part of the building. The owner would like to use a dark bronze siding with sort of a ribbed pattern. He has not yet selected the manufacturer or the name of the color palette that he's going to be using. So I sent you 2 drawings, and I showed you black siding and charcoal siding. The dark bronze is so close to darker charcoal that this gives you an approximation of how it will look once that siding is replaced. The area around the windows may be the same color as the siding. Again, these are design decisions that have not been made yet, but what the owner is looking at is using the dark bronze color for the siding and probably a matching color around the windows rather than white, but could end up being white if he thinks that if in the end that's more attractive. The bottom area, which has sort of a granite facing, is not going to be replaced. That will remain, and that's, of course, that's dictating what colors might work for the siding on the top of the building. So there are no changes to utilities. There is no parking for this building. This building is covered by our bylaw that says that if it's built before a certain time and it's an existing business structure and the use isn't changing, that you don't have to provide off-street parking. On this site, it would be impossible to provide any off-street parking because there isn't any site. There was a little bit of land on one side of the building, on this lot a number of years ago, but it was taken by the town to put utilities into a private way, a dead-end street that's on the side opposite Boulevard Street. So there is not any land associated with this building that's open for parking. There is no exterior lighting proposed for the building. There will be a sign application that will have to go through the usual review process with the sign review, building department, sign review board. And it's possible that the applicant might decide to ask for external lighting directed onto the sign. He's not really, hasn't made a decision about that. He might use the existing Empire Building location for the sign, or he might ask for a rectangular sign over one of the entrance doors. So, just from a design standpoint, I thought you might like to know that we've thought a little bit about signs. We certainly haven't reached any decision. The main changes in this building will be that there will be larger windows, taller windows in the top half, and the siding will be a much darker color. And of course, the handicapped accessibility problems have to be resolved by lowering one of the entrance doors and building another door on the Boulevard Street side. So that's a quick summary of what's proposed here. I'm just interested in knowing what the planning board thinks and whether they have comments and more information they might need.
Members?
So I'm very, very happy to see this building repurposed. I think the plan you put forward is a good one. I'm thrilled to see that you're thinking about accessibility and making sure the building is accessible to all Milton residents. And I'm really comfortable with the plan and would be happy to support it tonight.
Thank you.
I would agree. I think it's always been sort of funny looking building to begin with the windows so small. and those little panels are totally adorable. I don't know where that came up.
Well, I'm sorry they're going.
It's great to see a building, taken over and improved. And so, yeah, I'm generally supportive of it as well.
Rich?
No questions. I'm sorry, I think I missed it. What is the existing use of the building?
It's all office
Offices.
space.
All office space, okay.
It's going to continue to be office space, but the bottom floor will be all medical office space.
Is it all occupied?
I don't know if it's occupied anymore. When he bought, last summer when we first started, when I
No,
was
it's not.
looking, it
Sorry,
was
I didn't
occupied, but I don't think so. Yeah.
It isn't occupied.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jaffer, you're the owner, is that right?
Well, I'm I'm the guardian. I think the bank owns it for right now. Quite some time. But
Well,
I'm
congratulations.
the one responsible for watching it until said time. But I want to thank you all for having us here and giving us an opportunity to, present what it is we're thinking of doing. I obviously have not met any of you and don't know you, but I look forward to meeting each and every one of you in person at some point. I think what is important for me is to use this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm a resident of the town. I've lived here for 7 years now. I do have a practice nearby. And really what the plan is to have a finished product that not just that I could be proud of, but more so that the town and individuals in East Milton Square can be proud of. And that goes to residents as well as other business owners. My main goal is really to provide a facility and a space where the patients who come to visit the practice will be proud and happy and feel it's a good environment that is of quality care and quality atmosphere. And so I look forward to partnering and working with each and every one of you and whomever is willing to help to bring it to fruition. And I have Mr. Steve Lazarus on with us, and Steve has been very instrumental and extremely helpful in helping to navigate some of the challenges that have come up since we've started this process and this project. And so, I obviously don't know a lot of the technical questions and, concerns that may arise, but, Steve hopefully can provide some insight if there are any other questions that may arise based on which Ms. McKetrick spoke about.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome you to the business community in Milton. Since you're already a resident, we don't need to welcome you to the residential community. Stephen, are you the architect or the designer?
Yes, I am, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Well, I want to thank all of you for hanging in there with us for this lengthy meeting in this format. It can be challenging, so thank you for doing that. When I looked at the application that came in and I saw that the siding was called out to be black in color, I did send an email to Bill Clark, and then I think sent that to Mary, and I did request some color elevation. So thank you for turning those around quickly. And I would say that I am more comfortable with the charcoal or bronze than black siding. I think it'll, the black could maybe draw more attention than what you might want. And I think the charcoal or the bronze would work well with that stone color. So, so that's my feedback. But I think that, having that building get some new tender loving care would be beneficial, and to have that use in the square would be nice. So, so congratulations.
Thank you. I think you'll find that we're all in agreement on the color, and as we actually make the final selection, we want to push it more in the direction of a dark bronze. So.
Okay. So just so we're cover all of the bases, Bill, can you unmute everyone, and we can see if there's anyone here who would like to speak to this application?
Mike, you still there? Okay, do it myself. Everybody.
Okay, is there anyone participating in the meeting who would like to comment on this application for site plan approval for 25 Bryant Ave? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Bill. Then I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor by roll call, Cheryl Tagayas, yes.
April Anderson, yes.
Rich Beeler?
Rich.
Rich, are you muted?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Rich Beeler, yes.
Kathleen?
yes.
Kathleen O'Donnell, yes. Denny Swenson?
I just have a technical question. If people are having trouble getting onto the call, is this the only public meeting? Are you moving this to a vote next?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just a little bit concerned that there could be challenges in the future if the public wasn't, didn't know how to navigate and get on, like the attorney had said before in the other neighborhood. I'm just a little bit wary about that. So I'm going to abstain.
Before, Marion, just can you answer whether that you've talked with the abutters and with the neighbors?
Actually, possibly Dr. Joffrey might, but I've been working with them since before they bought the building, and I took them to the Traffic Commission in June. And at that time we were talking, but we weren't talking about, how the building was going to look. We were just talking about whether it was okay to ask the town whether they'd allow a couple of parking spaces, public parking spaces on the private way in back of this building. And my understanding is that the current resident at the end of that way, would be agreeable to that, but that's not really something for the planning board. It's for the Traffic Commission. They said they'd take it under consideration. They're going to come back and look at it again because they're looking at parking arrangements throughout the square right now because of the reconstruction. So there was some contact with neighbors about that. And we, everybody received mailed notice about this public hearing.
It's in the newspaper and they got individual notice.
I mean, I think anyone I've talked to has said that it's really good news that there's going to be some renovation on the outside of the building. That's all I can tell you. So I don't have a huge concern about that particular issue with this particular application. The reactions that I have heard have been very positive, but I haven't, there's a commercial building next door. The Milton Times is located there, just for example. That's one of the neighbors. Then we're have a big, two huge streets on the other two corners, and then across the street there's a gas station, and then there are the neighbors in the back. And as I say, we had some contact with those neighbors regarding the parking situation, and it seemed to be that this is of interest, that there'll be some improvement to the building, and that's all I can say. That's the extent of our neighbor contact. So
just a comment. That was a good question, Cheryl. Thank you for that question too, Denny. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, from my perspective, I think I was jumping to a yes. If you just look at this picture, and no offense to anybody, but it does. I mean, I've lived in this area for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I don't ever see anybody opening those doors and going in. There's not a lot of life. And if you look at this picture, I mean, it looks like it's not really taken care of with the weeds growing ridiculously wild. It sounds to me like this place is getting a facelift and it's going to have a nice use in there that I don't even know what the use, like, that's why I asked the question earlier. I didn't even know what the use was, or if I would have imagined your answer would be it's empty, just because it doesn't look occupied much. And that could just be because it doesn't have a lot of parking. So from my perspective, I'm kind of excited to see something get facelifted here. I would have probably asked a lot more questions if you said that there was going to be a lot more changes, or more need for some parking. At first I saw, Cheryl, you were looking at a restaurant on your screen, and I was like, what are you bringing to us, Marianne?
Not here.
So I'm glad that wasn't what was going right there, because that would have, while it looked awesome, it would have been, and I would like a brewery nearby, but it would have been a tough spot.
Well, I will tell you that I do think that the windows are improvements. I think the handicap access are improvements. I think all of the general changes are improvements. And I would like to be supportive. I'm just concerned about the public process aspect of this. Marion, did you give the same instructions that were on the agenda in the notice to the neighbors?
The notice goes out from the planning board, not for me.
Okay.
And it was before, the problem is partly that it was before this change.
Yeah, because we've had a lot.
So, yeah, I mean, I understand, yeah. But I think that I would be less concerned about this particular site. We did have some contact with the only residential neighbors there on the other side. And it's right in the middle of the business district with busy streets on all sides, so.
When are you starting building?
Sorry, April.
It's okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I really support the project for all the reasons that Rich said. I think it's a great investment in the community. I think it's the way square looks when you're looking in this direction, and I think it's great. That said, I think Danny brings up an important point, and I don't think it would be unreasonable for members of the public to not know that our meeting was happening or not following it or think that there might be a reason we would have canceled. And I can't imagine that anything super significant is going to happen here in 2 weeks. So in light of Denny's comments, maybe we just delay our vote until April 9th.
Bill?
That's what I was going to recommend. If they're not starting right away, why not?
Well, we can't get a building permit until you have site plan approval.
I mean, were you really going to get one between now and April 9th? Is that you were actually
No,
planning?
no, don't you
Yes.
usually have us write? Isn't there a written decision that you need
There
for
will be a
that?
written decision for the
So
site plan
that would be a
approval.
normal procedure. You can leave the hearing open if you want to.
The other is, this is not a change of use. If it was a change of use, there would have been a different process. Because this is office to office, that's why it's site plan approval. There's no change of use happening here.
I guess my question would be, I mean, was there really something that was going to happen in the next 2 weeks other than us drafting a decision and getting it to Marion, which we can still do?
I mean, you have to do that anyway, so.
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, to me, I would say let's lean on the extra cautious, just so that nobody can accuse us of not being transparent, because I think we all think this is a good project and we wouldn't want it to be a decision that was.
Yeah, that's fine.
Soiled. But
All right, so April, do you want to take back your motion?
I guess so. I don't know what the formality of that.
The formality, okay, right, so what is that formality, Bill?
Withdraw
We
your
just,
motion.
we can
Withdraw
amend
your
the
motion.
motion.
Withdraw the
Why don't
motion.
we just amend the motion to say that, you know, we have April's motion, and then we just say we amend the motion to actually keep the public hearing open until our next meeting on April 9th. And then in pen, you know, to give us the opportunity to review the final decision of the board.
Okay, so Marion, you will draft a decision for us.
I can do that if you want me to.
Bill, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns about that?
No, I think it's the right thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll take the vote again with the amended motion. Do we need to repeat it, Kathleen?
Yeah, so moved. How about we just say that?
Yeah.
All right, it was a motion by April. It was seconded by
Me, Kathleen.
Kathleen, with a friendly amendment by Kathleen. That was accepted by April.
Right.
All those in favor, Cheryl Tagayas, yes?
April Anderson, yes.
Denise Swenson, yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Kathleen O'Donnell, yes.
Okay, well,
What was
thank you,
Danny's vote?
everyone.
Yes.
Oh, it was yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing it.
And again, thank you for your patience with our meeting tonight and with continuing to our next meeting. And oh, so did we say that we have a continuation to a time and date certain?
I said April 9th. I didn't say a time.
Okay, so
Do we have to say a time?
No.
Why do we not say a time in case we have to juggle the times like we did tonight? Get more
We
flexibility.
always had to
Good
do it.
call.
You have an open public hearing.
Oh, okay. All right then, it's the 9th. Bill, anything else under administrative for the board before we close?
No.
Okay, then I'll take a motion to,
I'd give them, what, 7:15?
Sure.
on the agenda, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, I'll
Thank you
take a
very
motion
much.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved to adjourn.
Second.
Right.
Good night.
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 Night, thank you.
Joe?
Vote, yes, we adjourn, yes, vote everyone.
Yes. Thanks, Joe.
Right, bye. Bye, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Bye, everyone.
Two.
Oh my God.